March 9th. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we ask your blessings on the village of Wesley Chapel. We express our gratitude for all the goodness that you have given us. We ask protection for all those who protect us, law enforcement officers, firefighters, soldiers abroad, soldiers at home, all diplomats that serve abroad. We also ask that council be speedy in its resolution of facing difficult problems, that we not dwell on minutia, look to the big picture, and work for the betterment of Wesley Chapel and its preservation. We thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elaine. Okay, the first item on the agenda is public comments. This is general public comments. If you're here to speak about an item in the public hearing for nuisance ordinances or no solicitation ordinance, you can wait for that if you don't mind. So, are there any general public comments this evening? Anyone who would like to speak on any matter? Are you close sign up there? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. The first item is Larry, correct? Come on up to the podium if you don't mind, sir.
I'm not fully informed about what I'm going to speak about because I haven't been to all the city council meetings, but I'm going to speak about the de-annexation. I would like to thank the mayor, council, for your service. Because if we didn't have you, we wouldn't have nothing. You know, we really need the council to run our community. And I talked to the mayor in conversation with the mayor about, and I understand that the legislature is the only one that can approve the annexation. And I understand how politics work. I worked for the North Carolina Department of Transportation for 32 years in public service, so I kind of understand a little bit about that. One thing I would point out to you that if we do introduce a bill, or bill's introduced, they can put in the bill that property can never be annexed in the city again. But you need to make sure that's not in there. If the city wants to go back and take it home, take it back in their city limits, they can put that in the bill. So you may not know that, but I did a little research on that. Now because if you build more subdivisions or you build senior citizens homes and you build some industrial type that would bring in more tax value, you may want to add them back into the city later. So you want to have that option. And I understand that you've taken a vote on that process. So I want to set the record that I'm against the annexation. I think it's 6001 Tennessee Court. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir. The next person that has signed up to speak is Stan Schwartz.
Thank you and good evening. I would first like to say that I fully support the council and thank them for passing the resolution against the annexation. I have sat in this committee room and the ones over at the church for over 10 years. I'm a 10+ year resident of Wesley Chapel and 12+ year resident of Union County. And I've sat with my neighbors and we have discussed gun control and ETJ annexation, and lastly, the school district rezoning. We thought last year when we were discussing that we were building a community, that we didn't want a school redistricting to turn our community into something else and break up the ambiance, or whatever you would call it, of our community that we have. But apparently, some of the people that were against the redistricting had other reasons. And that is shocking to me, that all these years we've spent building this community, that these people have decided that their best interests are more important than a community. I will tell you that I do not have a friend in Raleigh, but if the de-annexing bill passes, that I will personally petition to de-annex from Union County so that no zoning applies to me. And I will be the first person in Union County to build a 7-Eleven and adult bookstore within a subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Okay, those are the two names that had signed, but does anyone else like to speak this evening on general public comments? Come on.
Hi, I'm Pat Stitt. I've been a resident in this area since 1972. I joined Wesley Chapel as soon as it was available for voluntary annexing in 1998 or 1999. So I've been a member of the resident of this community since then. I was able to find some documents that from the very beginning, and the documents that I found where Butch Fowler was on the council and Jim Mullis was on the zoning, or vice versa. I think it was vice versa. And I have the original zoning, and it was what it is now, virtually. I mean, I'm sure there's been a few changes. And so, I mean, I don't know how you, and I've served on a few committees, one being the downtown committee, trying to figure out how we have this commercial now, and how do you transition into the proper zoning. We needed to have more dense housing around this area just for that reason. But I think it was the general consensus on our committee that we stay R40 as best we can. I know that circumstances change and people's needs change. And so I would hope that we could, in this de-annexation, that we could work with the people that really need to sell their property. I mean, it's the right thing to do. We need to stay in the community, and the community needs to work together. We've done so with different committees and so forth, and I would hope that we would continue to do so, and have my support to do that, and to not for de-annexation. I have done what I can to write letters and attend meetings and so forth to against the de-annexation, because it's just going to blow this community that I've been a part of since the very beginning. It's just going to blow it apart, and it's just not fair to those who are here and want to stay here. And we came here to make Wesley. I mean, the slogan for Wesley Chapel is a great place to raise a family and a great place to live. And I want to keep it that way. And I do want to thank council. I know that it's extremely difficult to commit to the time and energy and just the stress of politics, which I have such a low tolerance for politics. And so I do appreciate each one of you that are going through this period of time. You've been accused of something that you had no control over. And I was here at a meeting where, I mean, the proper procedures were not taken to, and maybe it needed to come to this to make some kind of, just to make it, and I'm sorry I wasn't at the event, so I don't know what was planned there, but hopefully something was put in place that we can work with the residents who feel the need that they are. I mean, they're desperate to sell, and I understand that. I'm in real estate. I understand that things change, so I'm just hoping that we can make that commitment to work with the people, keep the community together. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. there anyone else that would like to speak under public comment? Okay, we move on to additions, deletions, and adoption of the agenda. We're going to remove number 10, Richard Helms got called into another, Board of County Commissioner Chair, Richard Helms, got called into another meeting, unfortunately. Just so folks know that are here, we have the Board of County Commissioners Chair as our liaison to the county. So I think that's a great thing. And Richard lives near here, so he's very much aware of the area. So we remove number 10, and I know we have a request to confirm the dates of the events at the park that were handed out to us last month. It's not on the agenda, but I would ask the council if we can add that to item 17. It'll make the landscape maintenance A and the dates B. If that's okay? Anything else?
I have something in safety, but I can use that under other business at the end.
Okay.
And,
Anything else? If not, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion.
Okay, Becky, do you have a second?
Yes.
Mike? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the public hearing on nuisance ordinances. But I will open the public hearing. And is there anyone that didn't sign up that wants to speak on the nuisance ordinances?
Mayor, if I could just, John
Yes,
Gaines is
right.
here, but
No, I know John's here, and we'll get to John, I think, a little later in the program. So, all right. We have a second public hearing on the no solicitation ordinance. And again, we didn't have anybody sign up, but does anyone want to speak on the no solicitation ordinance? I know John. Very good.
may I ask a question, since we didn't have anyone speaking on this? Is it possible, if we're wanting to put out a survey, put this on the survey? Because I don't think this is something that's that important right now.
To be honest, today, as I was going to drop my son off at the ball field, there were two gentlemen walking through my neighborhood to solicit business again. I really think this is something that needs to be addressed. It's been asked, requested, triply requested. We've had letters sent about it at the advance. Someone requested it. I really think we need to make a decision on this.
I wish we had gotten some letters, because I haven't seen anything. I have the planning board's notes on it, but that's all I have.
We'll get at that discussion in a while. Right now it's comments, so not hearing any. We will continue moving down the agenda. Item 6 is to approve the minutes for February 9, 2015. Do I have any comments, or do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move we approve the minutes for February 9th.
Second.
Okay, further discussion?
And Cheryl will add the comment in that I sent to you.
The one was sent out to everyone.
Okay.
It was already included, correct?
It was sent out, yeah.
It wasn't included in these minutes, no.
It was emailed out to everyone.
Say again, I'm sorry.
It was emailed out to everyone. It was just one line was added, and I don't have it in front of me.
It was the fact where I asked George about recusing myself, and he said, at that meeting, and he told me that I could speak, but
Right.
I already knew this, but I wanted his okay on that.
I saw it. Okay.
That would concern the deactivation.
Yes, that's the email that you got, I'm sure.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor with the adjustment that Becky mentioned? Vaccine? All those opposed? Okay. Okay, item number 7 is the finance reports. Cheryl?
You have the February financial reports. I did note to you that During the month, I moved $300 from contingency to the annual retreat expense account. Also, I was asked, and during the month of February, the town hall was used twice by outside groups, Potter's Trace and Blackstone HOAs. No fees were collected. I also just wanted to mention, because it had come up at the advance about our fund balance, and I just wanted to point out that we do have a fund balance of $385,884, as well as money that's restricted for Park and Rec from the fee in lieu of $94,178, the restricted fund balance for the amphitheater cover, that's $2650. We also have a fund balance assigned for a community center of $51,348. So I just wanted to point out, because someone had asked if we had, if we needed to rebuild our fund balance, and we do have $385,000.
So it's above and beyond those items you mentioned,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and that's on your balance sheet report.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Questions for Shelley? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to approve the February 2015 budget reports as submitted by the finance officer?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next item is the staff reports, planning and zoning, and code enforcement.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members each have a copy of my monthly report and the code of violations. There was one, wasn't really a violation, but I got a notice of some junk coming from the subdivision that's being built, and I think that's been addressed. The one thing that I do, first of all, does anyone have any questions about either of these reports? And John is here, and he does go out and about, so if you've got any specific questions, I can't answer them. John can about the violations.
John is a code enforcement engineer, so that would be the longer spreadsheet.
But if there are not any questions, two things I want to bring up to council. I've been asked to give a report on how many queries we've had on senior housing. And I'm using a little bit of my best guess judgment, but I know that there were 3 specific queries that I got for properties on Cuthbertson, on Potter, and on 84. And then I've gotten, best of my recollection, 3 realtors/developers who've just called me and said, hey, Bill, is this allowed? Where are we going with this? Just general queries on it. I want to say that there was a 4th one, but I can't put my finger on that. I know at least 3 plus 3. There might have been a 4th general query, but that I don't want to say for sure. But definitely 6 separate queries on senior housing during the past year, because I know some of those folks were at the advance last year, and they talked to me about it. And with that having been said, I've had a couple conversations with the mayor and some other council members, and one of the things that I will do from here on out are 2 things. In my staff report, general queries of development, I will make put in there, I had a request on blah, blah. And also, and as it happened today where I had to tell somebody, you're not allowed to do that based on our code. If I've said no to someone, and I'll give counsel, so if you're not blindsided by stuff, I will put that down. Now, if someone says, Bill, and I've had people say, Bill, this is not for general consumption. They have a private conversation with me. Nadine, if it were Janine, it's going to go down. Are you okay with that? You know, if they say, Bill, let's just put this on the QT, especially if something that's speculative. Unless you folks tell me I will.
Just a quick question. You said you've had 6 inquiries. What did that mean? In other words, inquiries how?
Inquiries as to, Bill, we're interested. Here is what we bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some layouts for those 3, in various degrees of specificity on those 3. But on this other three, Bill, talk to me about senior housing. Where do we stand on this? Is it allowed? Where are we going with it? What is the process? If I wanted to develop senior housing, what would I have to do? And so that's where I don't see a site plan. I've just seen, I've just gotten a query on.
So just to be clear, with the way our rules are right now, there would be no possibility of building senior housing on a 1 acre plot.
No, because if someone wants to do that, they could. It'd be a subdivision designed for seniors. It goes
Right.
against the grain of
Okay.
what a senior would want to buy into. But with senior housing, the term senior housing, you can say only seniors 62 and over, or 55%, or 80% of 55 and over. But if Elaine's subdivision, I'm looking at Elaine, if she wants to market it to seniors, it's her call, but we don't control that. Does that answer your
So we don't control, I'm sorry, so that again.
Okay, with senior housing, the definition where we are approving this as only for seniors.
Mhm.
We don't have that in our code.
Okay, but there is law that pertains to that,
Right,
correct?
HUD has a definition of
Okay.
senior housing where it's 62 and over, or 80% of the units have to be occupied by one person who's at least 55 and over.
Okay,
That's the HUD definition of
Mhm.
senior housing. And right now, most seniors would want to downsize the lots. We don't have the provisions for that. We don't have the provisions for any lots coming into the town that are less than 40,000 square feet. If we wanted to do senior housing and have that as a provision in the code, we would define it as such and say where it's allowed, R40, R40A, etc.
but the point is that senior housing cannot be built on R40, or it's not desired to be
It's
built
not,
on R40?
It's not desired.
Okay,
It's not
I
desired.
just want to clarify.
Right, right.
Okay,
We don't have a ban against it.
okay,
Right, because if we have McKinley Forest is a subdivision, you're going to hear
Right.
later on tonight. If they want to do it for seniors on 40,000 square foot lots, go for it.
gotcha.
It would not, in other words, marketing it to seniors would not violate our code whatsoever,
Okay. Okay.
because we don't address it. And I
Right.
don't, when the subdivision plaque is recorded, so David, who are you marketing it to? We don't, that's Shea Homes, they market it as they so choose.
Gotcha.
But if you wanted to have lots less than 40,000 square feet for senior housing,
Right.
then we introduce the term, and how do we control it, or address it, or allow it, whatever term you want to use.
And we can put in a zoning district
We
specifically?
can make it in a variety of different ways, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions about A, the senior housing queries that I've gotten, or B, in the new and improved reports that you get from me? And just, I did have A today, one, I said no, and it had to do, quite honestly, with the lot that should have been RUC. That isn't. It's an 11,000 square foot lot. That came in at 3:30 this afternoon, so that was not in here. This had already been sent out.
And you said no?
I had to, because the lot was recorded the lot was recorded after the ordinance got adopted. And we have a provision in there to grandfather lots.
If they were recorded before.
This one came after. And I checked with the county, and we have the plat here.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions for Bill?
The only thing I have, Bill, is on your reports, when people report violations, or like somebody has trash in their yard, or like we had over at Candela, somebody said they didn't think the wetlands. I think we're not Crime Stoppers. We're not a Crime Stoppers organization, and I think that we should correct that, because after that was checked out, that's a good example. After that was checked out, it was fine. You sent us a letter the next week, so somebody just, needed that checked out because they thought it was necessary. But I think people who report incidences, you should record that in your reports.
Sure.
Because I think that before somebody reports something, especially on their neighbors, I think they should go to their neighbor and speak to their neighbor first before they come to you about the violations. I really believe that. And that solved a lot of problems, I think, with neighbors too.
So are you saying that if someone does report and we do check it out, it is on your
Right,
report?
and whoever reports it, if they want to report it, it's that bad, I think they need to give you their name so you can report it. And not an anonymous like Crime Stoppers.
Gotcha.
It's fine.
Let me ask, no, the violation, the notices come to me first, rather than John. I report to John, I've heard about Joe's property, so then I share that with John, and then he goes and investigates. Okay.
So
So,
if someone doesn't want to give their name, then what do you do?
Don't check it out.
I would need counsel to tell me, to give me
I
that.
think if you don't report your name, give your name, it shouldn't be checked out because you could be just trying to get somebody in trouble. And it's just like I said, Candela, Diener had to come down and check it out and Bonnie or whatever, it was A-okay. But somebody else thought it was wrong and you didn't get the name, right?
No, those people actually came to my office and talked to me about that in person. The Candela with the alleged Diener violation, no, they came and visited with
Okay,
me.
I just think you need to keep their names in case that comes up.
But I do need guidance from council if they, Bill, there's because I did have somebody who did not want to give me their name.
Right. We don't want to create any animosity between neighbors if there isn't any. I think that creates a problem more than it creates a solution, personally.
What creates a problem?
If you can't call up and say, I think my neighbor's violating some city ordinance, please check it out, without necessarily knocking on their door or giving my name, I don't want to create a situation where I'm now in a battle with my neighbor when I don't necessarily need to be. I'd rather check out a false report than start Hatfields and LaCoys.
I think if you have a problem with your neighbor, you go to your neighbor first before you go to anybody else, right? But then that would allow them to give their name if they decide they have to.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Right.
Well, I think if they don't want to give their name, I think we should still move forward on it.
I kind of agree with Mike. My experience has been that neighbors have gone to their neighbors, and it's at their last resort that they're trying to get help. I can tell you factually in my husband's profession that he deals with this all day long, and it's typically that, you know, people do try to deal with their neighbors first, and it just blows up, and they need some intervention, and that's why they reach out to an external entity, honestly.
But again, I'm not, right now, someone calls me and says, there's a violation at 27 Jones Street.
I don't think you should preclude checking out an issue that's reported to you just because they don't give you a name. That's
I
my
agree.
opinion.
I agree.
I think you could ask the complainant if they had talked to their neighbor first. And if they say yes, then
Right.
But if they say no,
But even if they say no, you can't, as a,
I still
either
think you
you
should
have
check
an
it
ordinance
out.
has to be
Right.
enforced, or you don't.
Right,
That's where this is,
Right.
honestly, where this is going. Either you have an ordinance that has to be enforced, or it
Right.
doesn't.
so I think that
Now,
it
I
needs to be
understand
enforced.
there'll be false reports, I get what Becky was
Yeah.
saying. But regardless, if it is reported to the village, we don't know if it's false until we check it out.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you make that judge? John, go ahead, right now.
From an enforcement standpoint, as the code officer, my point of view is I don't really care the name of the complainant. All I need to know is that there's a complaint, and then we take the ordinance, we go to the site, and the town representatives, whether it be me or Bill or whoever, we are the ones that evaluate whether or not it's a violation of the ordinance or not. It doesn't matter whether it's an anonymous complaint or a named complaint. That doesn't validate whether it's a violation or not. The ordinance does. And you've got situations where you've got elderly, you've got handicapped, you've got different individuals that are not strong-willed, for example. And the neighbor they're complaining on, or the property that they're complaining on, may be a very strong-willed individual, and there have been repercussions from that person finding out who complained on. And a lot of times their first question is, who complained on me? I'm going to go beat them up, or other things. And, you know, our society nowadays is such that not everybody is gonna be as nice to their neighbor as say either of you two ladies. You know, if somebody came to you and said, I've got a problem with your property, you'd probably take care of it. Not everybody's that way. That's why we have law enforcement, we have courts, and we have code enforcement.
Make a very good point.
Yeah, I don't want you going out looking for violations.
Right.
But when someone reports something, we have to check it out.
Absolutely.
Okay, agreed.
Because this really wasn't on the agenda.
No.
So,
Thank you.
that's how our meeting's
Yes,
going.
thank you.
Senior housing, I have a couple of things I think we need to talk about. One is, of course, the planning board had ordered a request to include senior housing as part of a survey. Given, you know, I alluded to it a couple of times at the advance, that we don't have, I don't think, in my opinion, the liberty of time to do a survey the way it should be done. So my request is going to be to council to have the planning board continue on it, and I think there's been an interim discussion of having 2 council members and 2 planning board members work with Bill to sharpen the language, if you will. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, thank you, Mayor. The planning board does have proposed senior housing tax, and I'd be the first to admit, based on our field visits, our site visits, discussions with persons from the industry, it needs to be tweaked a little bit. That was my first blush, but so we have something to work with, and it's in planning board's hands. And it's on I put the agenda for planning board together, and it's on there for March the 23rd. If the council wants, and I've already shared this with the mayor and also with the planning board chair, if the council wants to push this forward, if we got a couple of planning board members and a couple of council members to take a look at the proposed tax, it still needs to be officially sanctioned or said no to by the planning board. It needs to leave the planning board. But certainly, I think that could help push it forward where there's some, if it goes back to the planning board, if there were 2 planning board members say, yeah, this is good, and there's 2 council members say, yes, we've worked it out, I'm sure there'll be differences that, you know, in theory, we could get a consensus on. And certainly between now and the planning board meeting, I'd avail myself to try, you know, to a mutually convenient time for anyone, whether it's during the times I'm here or some other time. I'd be happy to come down and help to advance it.
I don't think that's a meeting that's gonna take hours, I think that's a meeting that's gonna take some time, so I think we can probably squeeze it into your regular schedule.
Okay, and again, I'm willing to squeeze it in or not squeeze it in.
Well, first of all, is the council amenable to that?
Sure.
Yes.
I think that's the only way to really move it forward, the timeframe we've been given. I'm seeing none of you had, so I have consensus?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then is the idea of having 2 council members and 2 planning board members work on, because the planning board did the visit to the 3 different sites in January. So that's some of the tweaking, I believe, that, you know, will be done, and the council can have some input in that as well, whatever the representatives are. So that is also agreeable, again, it still has to go before the whole planning board and the whole council will explain. So, yes, sir.
And if there is movement, it took us a half day to visit 3 sites. We could shorten that up, but I thought the visits to the sites was enlightening for the planning board. If we want, thank you, Chair. If we wanted to have a quick visit before we sat down, the planning board's already seen the sites. I think that would, it was a learning experience for me. It was a learning experience for the planning board. And I'd be happy to, you know, go on a quick tour. There was 2 sites basically in Stallings, right across the border in Mecklenburg County, well, Stallings, Mecklenburg County, right on the county line, and then one in Monroe that we went to.
Bill, can you just clarify, the language that you're trying to put together is going to go in our subdivision ordinance? Where's the
Zoning.
language that you put, it's going in our zoning ordinance?
Yes. 'Cause
So is it to create a zoning district? That's what I'm trying to
we can make
clarify.
it how we choose. I have language that allows for senior housing. Is it an don't answer the question. Is it an R40? Is it an R40A? Is it use by right as a conditional use? Is it subject to conditional zoning? Do we want to have, I don't have this text easily created, RSH? We have our senior housing district.
Or S1, S2, whatever.
Exactly. I'm leaning a little bit against that if it's in R40, the issue of spot zoning, we don't want, if it's zoned R4, we do not want to have spots of something because that raises the specter potentially of spot zoning, and we want to avoid spot zoning as much as possible.
So you're saying what will give you spot zoning?
A spot in the middle of something.
Right, so what are you saying? I'm not following.
That if it were allowed as a use, listed senior housing, we define it. It is allowed in R40, R40A, R20, R whatever,
Okay.
any of our zoning districts. Use by right, conditional use, subject to conditional zoning, then you don't have to get rezoned. It's how council wants to see it at the end. Is it a, don't answer the question, is it a use by right? Is it subject to a CUP? Or to get this, if we have conditional zoning, subject to conditional zoning.
So, okay. How is that avoiding?
That is avoidable, because we're not rezoning anything. If we're a conditional use or subject to conditional zoning, it's still, come the end of the day, subject to council approval. But there are no rezonings. The zoning map stays the same.
Okay, what I want to do is not to keep going, I mean, I know this is germane, but I need 2 volunteers, basically, to start working on this, to bring it back, so that we can flesh it out and say, what in this ordinance do we like or don't we like, you know, does the planning board agree with it, and then what are we, looking for? Having 2 members, so do I have volunteers? Elaine?
Do you have a passion for it at all?
I'm passionate about the village, so I have passion for everything that comes across the desk. So I am glad to work with anyone on it if you want me to.
I would like you to, but I'll do it if you don't want to. Sounds like Lane's in.
I'm in.
What do you think?
I need a second here.
I'll throw if I don't hear from you, I'm gonna throw my name in the hat.
Go for it.
Elaine and I, unless somebody objects.
Or Becky, would you like to?
If you two already started, that would be kind of rude for me to come in.
No, do you want to be part with Elaine working on the senior housing tax?
I would be glad to, because that's what I said when I started on that.
Right.
But I don't want to, you two came up first, I mean, I don't want to.
I asked the whole council. They spoke up first.
I think we all would be willing to do our best to put something together.
Right.
So it's a matter of
That's right.
who's passionate about it, like you said.
I
think
am
you're-
a senior citizen.
I know, that's why I'm looking at the 2 of you, because,
Well, we also.
you initiated the whole thing. I would think that you should be a
Well,
part
she
of it.
didn't initiate it. Actually, we talked about this when we were in the other building.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. It was brought up a long
Yes,
time.
move along.
I would like to do it with Elaine unless somebody else has another objection.
Okay.
Okay. So it looks like Bill, you, I, and Elaine?
And, Mayor,
You already have the people from the planning board decided?
No. I can get with, I've spoken about the concept with Stephen.
Right.
And,
I will continue, I'm sure reach out that I have this weekend, and I have not been able to get home.
okay,
Because they might be away, I don't know.
okay. But we need,
My number is not answering.
and my preference would be if the 4 of us were together. If the 2 of you wanted, because again, planning board has gone out, if you wanted a quick tour of some senior housing
I have
communities.
seen every kind of senior housing.
Or Mike, if you wanted to go out, just, again, I thought the visits that we had, it was a learning experience for me.
I'm good.
Okay.
So just set the date for planning board.
Okay.
So they can do that.
Now, do we have a time?
Who's that?
I'd like to, put a time frame on it, because I think this is something we need to.
The planning board packets have been prepared, the meeting's on the 23rd, the packets are ready to go out
Do we
today.
need to do the special meeting before or after the planning board?
It's not a
meeting?
special meeting.
I mean, not there.
What I'm saying is this, if the text gets changed between now and the planning board meeting, that text has to be put together and then sent to the planning board.
Right.
So before the next meeting.
My suggestion is that either the mayor or I and the mayor have a discussion with the planning board chairman to make sure that we're all on the same wavelength on this for the planning board meeting.
Right, the planning board meeting's the 24th, and I would like to have them, I believe the best option would be for them to have not only the existing language, but if we have amended language in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And again, we will discuss that with Steve as well, but I think that's fair. I mean, it shouldn't be, I don't believe it's going to be major tweaks, there'll be changes.
There definitely have to be some tweaks to it because some of it just won't fly.
Yeah.
And right now for next week, I've got an amended schedule. I'm here 2 days next week. And right now those 2 days are open. So I will, Mayor and I perhaps tomorrow will have a conversation how we move forward with this, get Stephen on board, because he would have to appoint 2 people himself.
Right. Reach out to get 2 volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a path forward.
Thanks,
Okay.
Ron. I'm good.
Are you good? Any further questions for Bill on anything else?
The conditional approval.
No, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Okay, item 9, Billy Forrest, and Shay has been very patient. Final plat for McKinley Forest subdivision phase 2. Bill, you're up again.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In your packets, folks, you have a copy of the plat plus a staff report. There is one I got literally today, a minor tweak, which I will explain to you in just a sec about the final plat. But the final plat, this is the final plat, which you've been to before. You've heard me say with plats, they're done 2 ways. All of the infrastructure is put in and approved, and everything's in the ground, ready to be recorded. Or Plan B, which is the normal way most developers do it, is that they bond the improvements that need to be done. And in this case, McKinley wants to bond it. And you see in your staff report, the bond amount, which is 1.5 times the cost of the improvements, is $122,812. In addition, there is a FEMU, which Cheryl alluded to before, of $19,000 and change. Now, McKinley has paid the $19,000. That's here. The bond is to be, they've given me the language. It needs to be tweaked a little bit. Bottom line is the bond needs to be for $122,000 and have a shelf life of 2 years. The bond can be extended, but after 2 years, that bond needs to be reevaluated if all the infrastructure is not in, because costs have changed. And typically, if it takes that long, as improvements get in, Bonnie says, Bill, you can lower the bond amount to such and such amount. So this is phase 2. Council has already approved phase 1. This is 18 lots. There is one, and again, I got this literally 5 minutes before the meeting. And David Price is here. Hunter. What I'm about to show you is an easement that they would like to see on the plat that was not on the list that you choose. And what it is for something that didn't affect them when they got first approved, but affects them now. And you've heard me talk about the group mailboxes that the Postal Service now requires. When they got approved, the Postal Service did not require group mailboxes. So you will see on here, this is the same plat as you have in your packet. And David, if I go astray, please square me away. But you will see 2 easements on lots 24 and 28 for the group mailboxes. Now, mailboxes are something that the ordinance says you don't issue zoning permits for. You want a mailbox on your lot, go for it. There are certain things that we don't require any zoning permits for. Fences, mailboxes are specifically said, no mailboxes. But this is an easement, which means that mailbox will be on Mr. Jones's property, but the easement is shown on it. So when Mr. and Ms. Jones buys that property, it's there. And the Postal Service is now mandating group mailboxes and subdivisions. That's not our call. And when this plat was first approved, this was a change that has happened since.
one question on mailboxes specifically. I know that why the post office is going to these centralized mailboxes for a neighborhood. Do we have anything in our ordinance that requires additional parking so that people can use those mailboxes without causing problems on the street or
No.
blocking traffic? You get 2 or 3 people parked in front of someone's house while they check their mail, it would get a little old if that was my house.
This is one thing, and to be honest with you, that's a good point. I hadn't even thought about, because this is still a new, something new.
I know, it's something that's relatively new with the postal service.
Mike, I think to address your point, we do recognize the additional parking that could come up. We've strategically located them in the side street, so they're not directly in front of people's houses. These are going to be along Copper Tree Lane here, so it's not going to be in front of somebody's house, it's going to be kind of on the side street. So you notice there is additional parking.
But I would add that we start thinking about that, some kind of ordinance that would require if we're going to start doing these gang mailboxes. For a small subdivision like this, I really don't see it as a problem. But as we move forward, I think we need to consider
That's a good point, then.
specifically about that. I mean, if you go into a good-sized apartment complex, not in Weston Chapel, but they always have 2 or 3 spots laid out so people can stop and check their mail on their way in. I think we should be thinking about that. So-
And that's a good point. And again, as we move forward, that's something, again, hadn't even thought about it, but I think you're making an excellent point.
Other than that, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Any questions for Bill? If not, sorry, that's a good point, my friend. Do I have a motion to approve the final plat per Bill's recommendation and where everything is in?
Second.
It doesn't matter.
All those in favor? I'm sorry, did you have something?
Yes, no, it's 122,000, you didn't mean 122,812, right?
Yes, ma'am, $122,812 is the bond amount. And the mayor does not sign it until the approved bond instrument, the fee in lieu is, we got that one, so the approved instrument is in, and I'm sure, because these folks want to sell lots.
So we captured that whole ratio?
Pardon?
We captured that whole ratio, because I said on the
I'm sorry.
captured the vote. You captured
Yes.
the vote.
It was unanimous, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, skipping 9, 10. Item 11 is consider approval of nuisance ordinances, and the public hearing is still open. Bill or John? Do you want to speak on that?
I'm going to let John speak. There are a series of different ordinances, which, as I said when it was first introduced, this is not my area of expertise, so please don't ask me technical questions. John here is the master of these.
Thank you for being here, John.
So I think what will help is, since we've been talking about the nuisance ordinance and no solicitation, explain how nuisance is different than solicitation.
Alrighty, nuisance ordinance pertains to like tall grass, trash and debris, junk in the yard, different things like that. The solicitation ordinance, and I have not had a chance to look at yours, but that's dealing with door-to-door salesmen or whatever, like the old days, it used to be the guy selling the vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. Now there's any number of things they're trying to sell, and so they show up at your door without you requesting them to come out for an appointment or something.
I just want to clarify, because I think those people are nuisance.
Well, that's true too.
2 separate issues.
Two separate issues,
Separate
yeah.
items.
One of them is a people thing and the other is a property thing. So
Thank you.
for the most part, I deal with the property thing. So my understanding is we're looking at all of the ordinances that we submitted to you the last time. So there's a total of 5. In the interest of time, I guess the easiest thing, we've already been through these. So if you have specific questions on any of the particular ordinances, I'll be happy to answer those. Beyond that, I don't really have anything more to brief you on. We've already been through it once or twice.
Okay, questions from council? Any discussion items?
Just to clarify, these are complaint-based, you said, correct?
Yes.
You're not coming to the village on Wednesdays or Tuesdays or whatever, and driving around the village and looking to find someone in violation of these. This is if someone calls up and says, this
Citizen
is
calls.
what's going on.
Right. Citizen calls, village hall, files a complaint. That complaint goes to Bill and then is passed on to me, and on my next visit into town, depending upon when that needs to be, then I will go to the particular sites in question and compare what I see on the ground against the ordinance to determine if a violation does exist. If it does, then I will send a notice to the owner unless I can meet up with the owner that day and have a conversation with them. Otherwise, I will send them a notice of violation explaining what the violation is, what ordinance they can find, the ability to call me and ask questions, and to also meet again to discuss the compliance of the property.
And you, as I recall, you said that there are ways of determining if someone, let's say, has 3-foot-high grass, but that grass is hay or has been harvested for hay in the past. You can verify that. You have ways of verifying that, and that would not be something that you would file a violation against. And the third thing I understood was if someone, let's say someone called on a structure that appeared to be in violation of an unsightly home, but the person who lived in the home was unable to make amends to their home, that you would have the ability to come in and help them, if necessary, get grants to help them, fix their home if the case warranted, and so forth.
If the village has a grant in place to assist for that kind of thing, or if the county has a grant in place to assist for that, then of course I'm going to pass that information on to the property owner to try and help them in any way I can.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to get compliance and to provide them the assistance that we can. Now, if there are no grants available and there's work that needs to be done, it ultimately falls on the property owner. Now, if we can help them find other agencies or churches or whoever to assist them, then by all means, we're going to do everything we can to help them.
Would you like to explain to the people about the penalties for the nuisance and solicitation ordinances?
Okay, I'm not sure how it is in the solicitation ordinance, but the civil penalties ordinance that you have in your packet that we have drafted, the way that is designed is if we get a complaint on a property, whichever ordinance it is, nuisance, junk cars, whatever, we get a complaint on the property, it could also be a zoning violation. We go out to the property, verify the violation, issue the notice of violation, and gives them a reasonable time to bring the property into compliance or to get zoning permits or whatever it happens to be. If after the deadline, let's say April 1st was the deadline for a violation that was sent to a property owner, if they have not attempted to get in contact with any of us, whether it be Bill or me, and usually the notice I send out is to have my cell phone on so they can call me. If they're not making any kind of attempt to bring the property into compliance, and they're not doing anything at all, then there is potential for a civil penalty to be issued after that deadline. So on April 2nd, a civil penalty could be issued. And each consecutive day that the violation continues after that, another civil penalty could be issued. Okay.
And that's at the discretion of the council,
That's at the discretion of the code officer.
code officer? You.
Right. Because you don't want me coming to you every month and
No,
saying,
right.
I got 15 properties that their deadline was at the beginning of the month, and, do you want to give me permission to issue this one a civil penalty? You want it to be streamlined and you want it to be fair across the board. And to be honest with you, you don't want to be making that decision here. You want that decision to be made in the field based on what that person is doing to comply. If they're making their very best effort to do it, we're not going to issue civil penalties. If they've made a phone call and said, my lawnmower broke, but on this date, it should be out of the shop, and that's 5 days after the deadline, we don't have a problem. We're not going to issue civil penalties. We're going to look to see if they mow the grass when their lawnmower comes out of the shop. If they did, we're good. Civil penalties are a last resort.
Yeah, I don't think we're looking to make money on this deal. I think we're just looking to
Right.
keep people, I don't want to use the wrong word here, keep the neighborhood nice, or keep the
Well,
community nice.
It's a tool, as I've said many years, code enforcement has to have a toolbox. These ordinances are the tools in my toolbox to help motivate people to comply with the standards. It is not something to come beat them over the head with. So if they're making any effort whatsoever, that civil penalty tool doesn't even come out of the toolbox, except to let them know in the notice of violation that that's a possibility. And most people, you never even get to that point. They get the notice. A lot of them are simply, hey, I am so sorry. You know, my lawnmower broke, so I couldn't mow, but I will mow. We're good to go. Anything else?
And the penalty is how much? I see in the planning board minutes, it's $50, but for some reason I saw $100 somewhere.
No solicitation ordinance.
Yeah, this one covered the nuisance, junk cars, and now the non-residential. This is $50
Per day.
per day. And in most cases, we don't have to issue too many. Most cases, we don't have to issue any.
And I would note that these ordinances typically, I'd asked for the planning board to look at them, although last time the planning and zoning related per se. Planning board had voted unanimously against all of these, the nuisance ordinances specifically speaking to. But again, this is a matter of reference, that's all. And the reason, let me actually say, and the reasons were concerned about big government, becoming big government, and some of the concerns that I think Becky voiced earlier, which was being able to talk to your neighbor first, so to speak.
And some of the rest of them, that since you mentioned it, it is the premise that establishing criteria to reflect punishment to change behavior to a standard we have arbitrarily chosen is presumptuous. Another one was, they definitely didn't think it was needed, and so they asked, someone asked Bill about the complaints they've had, and he said one of them was chickens, the other was junk, a shade tree mechanic, and junk in the front yard, and garage too close to the lot. Also, that they recommended they do not have it. They spent a lot of time on this, as I see right here, and they were totally from the beginning against this. Planning board was.
And also at the advance, again, someone had mentioned that they felt there was a need for this type of an ordinance.
Well, and I'll tell you from what I've received so far and from the complaints that I've been sent out to look at, I was sent out to look at a guy that was running a salvage business. Well, the problem wasn't the salvage business he was running, but it was all the junk and debris that he had spread all over the yard. I mean, there was trash all over the place and things like that. And the issue wasn't him running a business there. The issue was the condition of his property. And I got a call from a citizen the other day to go look at a property, which I went to look at this evening on my way in, and he was complaining about the junky condition of the property. And it is, in fact, pretty nasty. But unless you adopt these ordinances, you don't have any way to even address those issues, much less enforce them.
George, anything to chime in on?
I mean, there's lots of municipalities that have nuisance ordinances and plenty that don't. So it's certainly within the council's discretion. As John said, if you're interested in putting some teeth in the ability of the code enforcement officer to eliminate what you may deem unsightly or unseemly, then it's probably a good idea. But legally, you could do either one.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Other questions for John? Good on that? Okay, do I have a motion at all?
Yes, so I'll make a motion to adopt the nuisance ordinances presented by Mr. Gaines at the October 21st, 2014 meeting. do you want me to rattle off each of the ones? There's 5, I believe, right?
Five.
There are 5?
Yes, no, fine.
Sure. Let me just get to the top of them, sorry. Minimum housing standards, general penalties, sorry?
Right, they're listed on the old form.
Sure, abandoned nuisance and junk vehicles, public nuisances, unlawful conditions on private property, and non-residential building or structure standards.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second, further discussion.
I would like to go on record that I am, as a planning board, I'm totally opposed to this. I think we have enough problems in the town right now as it is without imposing things on people. Just like the housing situations, these people live here before the town, a lot of them are talking about before the town was ever formed, and tell them they have to live differently, and tell somebody that their grass is too high or whatever. I don't think people should neglect their grass. I just don't believe in imposing this on our people right now. I just think that it needs to be discussed. If you're going to do a survey, do that. But I don't think this is a necessity. And like I said, I think it is imposing something on people that we shouldn't do.
Any other comments? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, 3-1 carries. I close the public hearing for the nuisance ordinances. Next item is to consider approval of the solicitation ordinance. Janina, since you want to speak to that?
Do you want, so last May of 2014, we received a first draft of the no solicitation ordinance, and that came at the behest of citizens who were being bombarded by solicitors in their neighborhoods and in the village. At that time, the attorney was asked to redraft it, and as I put in this description, there was a belief that was sent out in October. It wasn't, or at least I didn't receive it. So February, we all received it. And so apparently it came out too close to our February meeting, so it was asked that we could review it and bring it to the table for this meeting. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to review it. Basically, the Village of Wesley Chapel has experienced undue solicitation, and at times citizens have written to the village expressing their desire to put a stop to these unwanted callers on their private property. A record exists of these citizen complaints. In an effort to safeguard the citizens of the village, and no solicitation ordinance is requested to be drafted by the village attorney. And I make a motion to adopt the no solicitation ordinance for the village as was drafted by the attorney, which we received for our last council meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Okay. Further discussion on this?
Yes, I would like to know with this, for example, we have events that are going to occur in the park. Will people who work for Friends of Park be able to solicit in subdivisions to work?
In here, it says the prohibitions of this section are not intended to apply and shall not apply to any person, business, or organization holding valid privilege license issued by the village, or any person, business, or organization that holds a current license issued by the state and is engaging in a not-for-profit activity.
And so, let's say if you were running for office, you could still go to people's houses and talk to them about your campaign?
I'm going to reference that to you. Is that true? You can
Under the way this is written, yeah,
Yes.
that's yeah.
Okay, those were the only two questions.
And we're not going after the Girl Scouts either.
That's what I want to know.
Not-for-profits.
Right.
May I just
Yeah.
make one suggestion?
Absolutely.
If you're inclined to adopt this, I think something, to be quite honest, again, since I had thought it had gone out back in the fall, I hadn't looked at this quite a while, I would make a suggestion that in section 1A and section 2A to add the word residential before private property in both places.
Okay.
Because as I understood the concern, and as I heard you just say it, the concern is door-to-door solicitations in neighborhoods and people wandering onto people's home properties to solicit for commercial purposes. And because that's the purpose, you want to narrowly tailor the ordinance to that purpose. And so if you're inclined to adopt it, I would suggest adding residential before private property in those two places.
Okay, thank you.
Good point.
Who seconded it? So you want to rescind it, then I'll... Okay, I'll amend my motion to incorporate the suggested change of our attorney to include residential in front of private property in both 1A and 2A.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Further discussion? Thank you for that, George.
Thank you.
Those in favor? Sorry, I missed that. Mike, did you? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carries 3-1. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the review of conditional zoning input. Phil had a little bit on his planning and zoning report, and we've had this back and forth a little bit. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. First, this has been reviewed by the planning board. Planning board voted a few months ago 3-2 against conditional zoning. It is now in the council's hands. Public hearing had been called. Let me just fast forward one thing. If the council is inclined to adopt something tonight, one thing that you did not have in your packets are statements of reasonableness and statements of consistency. I will hand them out to you. These are my suggested ones. But we cannot, if the council's inclined to approve something, please make sure that, Janine, let me just give you them, and this way I've done it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And give one to Cheryl.
Just one? It's just a top copy?
Yeah, just
Yes.
one. Make sure Cheryl has one.
Does George need one?
George has looked at them. Okay. I put together a conditional zoning text a number of months ago for planning. Planning board had a number of review sessions on it, and in your packets, I gave to you the text that I had put together. And there were some changes that the planning board had made. Also that's been discussed is a set of text amendments that bears many of the concerns and inputs of Janine. That did not go before planning board. Council can adopt text.
Actually, it did go before them in the last, but they chose not to.
Excuse
consider it.
me, I stand corrected. And Janine, I'm putting words in your mouth, so if I'm going astray, please correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm misleading, because that's not what I'm trying to do. Some of Janine's concerns were the public informational meetings, how many, and how far out we notify folks. Now let's put everything in perspective. With conditional use permits, we have a public hearing. The people who get notified are the adjoining property owners. And only the adjoining property owners, because that's what the ordinance says. In my original text presented to the planning, operative words, original text, one public informational meeting with a 500-foot radius. Planning board, before they took a motion, had some concerns 500 was too small. In the text that you had, it got bumped up to 1320. Planning board then later on said, no, we're against conditional rezoning, so that's where it stopped. There was some concern about 500 feet to being too small, it was 1320 too small, a mile, half mile. I've been asked, and I don't think, I had this for the advance, but we never got there. I've done 2 sets of handouts on 2 pieces of property that shows 4 different radii, 500, 1320, which is a quarter mile, 2640, which is a half, and 5280, which is 1 mile. And for 2 pieces of property that I picked at random, you can see, and I can hand these out to you folks. And Janine, if you don't mind, just take one of each and pass.
Oh, yes, take both?
Yes, and but give one to Cheryl too. There's no mandate for conditional zoning to have public information. And you've also got this, which compares 6 different communities on conditional zoning. All of them have public information. Some of them have 1, some of them have 2. My recommended text was to have 1. The text that Janine promoted was to have 2. The first meeting to get input, and if any changes were made, to have a second meeting that reflected the changes that were made by the developer. As I've said all along, whether you have 1, 2, 12 public informational meetings, the developer can do as he so chooses, and he can heed the comments of the people who attended, or it's, folks, thank you very much for attending, but I'm still going to go my way, and then he or she takes his chances when he goes before planning board and council. It's been asked of me about conditional zoning, does this only apply to commercial? And my response to that was, no, it doesn't. It can apply to residential. If you ask my best guess and where have I seen it the most, I've seen it the most for commercial. But if you have conditional zoning, unless you say otherwise, anyone could apply for any type to rezone from R40 to R20 CD, from R40 to B1 to B2, from B1 to I1. I had a query today about, and this was not my no, about that one industrial piece of property that we had. So it was brought to my attention about that. Would they want to go from I1 to conditional B2? They could, unless you had a prohibition that said, no, we are only going to allow for conditional zoning in these types of zones. And I've seen that in some communities. Moreover, I've seen in some communities where, I'm just going to pick senior housing. You want senior housing? It's going to be through conditional zoning. We're not going to sanction it. To answer your question before, Janine, about senior housing, how do we allow it? It could be allowed that. If we don't have conditional zoning, we can't do it that way. But you can tailor it as you so choose. And unless you put some restrictions on how it's to be employed, again, if I am a property owner and I want to rezone my property, they come see me. We talked about Mr. Espinoza and his property. We don't need to go there. That property was rezoned. But had we had conditional zoning, I would have given Mr. Espinoza another choice. He had 2 choices at the time. He would have had 3 choices. And notice the word that I use, choice. Unless you mandate this is the way it's going to be, it's conditional zoning or not, then someone who comes before me and wants their property rezoned, it's my job to tell them what their options are. And they would have straight zoning, go through a conditional use process, which is a quasi-judicial, or the conditional zoning process, which is legislative.
But with all 3 choices, they're still held to the same standards eventually. Just not necessarily all at the same time.
No, because with straight rezoning, there are no conditions.
True.
But with conditional use zoning or conditional zoning, there are fair and reasonable conditions that have to be mutually accepted. If we're here, council rules, no, we want this, developer says this, those are 2 ships sailing in the night, it doesn't get approved. Notice the term that I use, fair and reasonable conditions. We can't ask for the moon. They need to be land use related, and there needs to be reasonable related to the property, not because that's the way I like it. That just isn't going to fly. It'll fly, but you may be at the wrong end of a lawsuit. And I use the term, you've heard me talk about Italian terracotta roofs, which I love, and someone queried me about this the other day when I said that. Just because I like terracotta roofs can't mean that I can impose my will upon the property owner to say, you're having terracotta roofs because I like them. What you can say, if you're in an all brick area, you want to put something that's vinyl, that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Within reason, land use related, most importantly, and here's where the land use plan comes in. If the land use plan sanctions it, well, we got some back. So, well, first of all, does anyone have any questions on what I've just said? Anything about what I've just said? And Janine, because I used your name to make sure that what I said was correct about some of your concerns about the public informational meetings.
I
And
think you got it. I don't remember exactly what I had originally.
Well,
It sounds like
I read it before I came
Yeah,
here.
well, I'm glad you.
I read that.
My question, though, is, as I've reviewed some of the surrounding area conditional zoning language, for example, Marvin has something called ICD.
That's a great question. Good point. Thank you. Yes, excellent point.
So the question is so I guess,
Can
Go ahead.
I take that, because thank you for bringing that up. With Marvin, ICD, they are literally creating a new zoning district for the person who's applying for it. And what's important about that? With this, what I've written is, and you've seen me say this is the bar, any conditions can be above the bar. And that's what I presented to the planning board. In Marvin, with ICD and some of the other communities, Monroe's another example. I don't know if Monroe's in there, but in Monroe, they do it this way too. You're literally creating from scratch a new zoning district. You tell us what you want to do. And it can be above, it can be below. With Marvin, the developer tells Marvin, this is where I'm going below the standard. He or she points out where you're going below the standard. And council can say, we like this below the standard A, but B just isn't going to fly. C, can we meet you halfway? Now, in all due fairness, that is not what I have in the code, in my proposed text. But it does allow for a little bit more flexibility. I've shared with you, I wrote Mineral Springs, and I worked with them. They wanted to entice some development here, and they said, you know what, Bill, we're willing to be a little bit flexible on signage, on parking, for landscaping, blah, blah. And so I wrote in the code, you can, don't quote me, it's in here, up to 10%, up to 25%, you can go below the standard on these prescribed things. Marvin, you tell us where you want to go below, and we'll consider. In Mineral Springs, it's for blah, blah, and blah, up to this amount.
and then just the second part of that is, so then for Weddington, they specifically have conservation subdivisions.
Which is a
for
little
their-
different.
Right, so it's specifically RCD,
Right.
residential conservation.
But that's a different animal, because that, first of all, I don't believe, let me be sure, Weddington does have conditional zoning. Yes, they do.
It's specifically for their R40.
And most of Weddington, you may be right, I have here, can be requested for any zoning district. That's what it says. Town can approve sketch plan for major subdivision simultaneously.
They only have R40.
Yeah, well, no, actually, they do have some RE.
They
do have some RE.
do have
They do have some
You're
RE.
right.
And actually, those duplexes are zoned R20 on Hempstead. But by and large, Weddington is zoned R40. You're correct. But
For
cons-
development, for the properties that would be developed.
Right, are zoned R40. They do have conservation zoning and conservation subdivisions. Different animal than conditional zoning. With conditional zoning in Weddington, you see I've included them in the list. But I want to make sure that council understands what I've put together. What I put together for conditional zoning is a little bit more restrictive than Marvin's and Mineral Springs and Monroe.
But I want to clarify, so you're saying conditional zoning is not going to affect to give us the ability to do conservation subdivisions?
That is correct. That is correct. If you want conservation subdivisions, I'm prepared to talk about that tonight as well, because I've got Marvin's and Weddington's.
Later in the agenda.
Later in the agenda. Okay. Conservation subdivision, you need text to allow it.
Right.
And we don't have that text.
Right.
And again, these going below if you're required to have 100 parking spaces, I can't speak for Marvin, but I could not imagine that they would say, oh, we're going to let you get by with 20 spaces and we're going to ditch 80. We're not talking about significant changes. And I bring that up with conservation subdivisions. We're allowing for significantly less in zoning square footages for the lots. So you really need to have something, a tool that really allows for that. Going below is for some tweaks, not for some wholesale changes. But again, with
And then
my,
you'd have to have subdivision text that supports all of them as well.
and that you could, for conservation subdivision, yes, you would.
So conditional rezoning is not getting you, taking an R40 and I just said that.
Yes,
Conservation subdivision, where
No, we
you
would
would
need
have an
support.
R40 lot of land, 100 acres, let's just say, and you can get 86 houses on it. And we say, go to town, put your 86 houses on it, and these are the conditions we agree to for green space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Conditional zoning isn't getting you that.
And especially my version, because my version says 40,000 square foot lots, it's 40,000 square foot lots. You couldn't allow for 39,999. Conservation zoning, separate animal, and I'm prepared to discuss that later on this evening.
Let's take one at a time.
But does everyone understand, and thank you so much for bringing up the ICD, because that is a very important element of this.
How do you mean it's a very important element of the conditional zoning?
Yes,
Okay.
in that if this is a standard,
Mhm.
right here, any conditions that the developer and the applicant, the council agree to, have to be above and beyond the standard. It cannot be below the standard. In other words, let's say a shopping center were approved. We're going to approve you for 100,000 square feet of shopping center. These are the uses. They're all allowed uses that would be able to go in there. The hours of operation from 6 a.m. to midnight. You want, our code requires you to have 100 parking spaces. We cannot let you go to 99 spaces because that's going below the threshold.
And in the Marvin version,
They can go below.
Marvin says the developer, they ask the developer to tell them where they'd like to go below the standards.
Which is important.
Right.
But, and my putting it together since we were, this is the first time,
Well, important to know things like that.
But they can't go below it
And
with the way we've got it
The way we've got
proposed.
it.
the way I propose, now, whatever you guys can adopt whatever you so choose to adopt. But the way it's presented to you, so there's no misunderstanding. If this is a standard, any conditions have to be above and beyond and not below the standard.
But would there be any situation where you would approve below the standard?
You, the council, could not approve below the standard unless you put that in the text to allow it.
I was just trying to think of something that would fall below the standard that would.
I think I can give you an example here, if you want to help you out though. Let's say, for example, you wanted to put in a movie theater that's only usually busy in the evenings from 6 o'clock till midnight. And all the rest of the businesses in the shopping center closed at 6 o'clock. Therefore, they don't necessarily have to have 100 parking spaces just for the movie theater.
That's
You might be able to use the rest of the shopping center because the other businesses are closed.
That's right.
Would that be a good example?
Actually, I think we have something on shared parking.
We do.
But here is a perfect
Well,
example.
Church and the park.
Here's a perfect example. We have, I'm making this up, we have a maximum square footage of signage of 100 square feet. You want to do 102 square feet. That's going below the standard. Go for it. This whole issue that we will be addressing a planning board next month about what can go in the in the front yard. Our current code is really strict on that. And what? Go for it. We'll let you go below the standard on this because we know what we're approving.
Bill, you have to be careful there because you open yourself up to one person gets allowed an exemption where the next person comes along and asks for the exemption and doesn't get it.
Every case stands on their own 2 feet.
Well, at the
And
same time, once we put it in the book,
you're not putting it in the book, you're approving it for Joe.
well, okay. But at the same time, this council approves it for one person, and then 2 years down the road, we have a different council sitting here, and then they disapprove the very next thing. It's exactly the same. It's kind of a gray area where you're really opening yourself up there for some potential double standards.
This is your comfort level.
Right.
One other thing I meant to say before when I was giving people options is conditional zoning is a tool that the applicant can apply for. Unless you mandate and say the only way we're going to sanction this in the Village of Marvin is through conditional zoning, then that's a tool, an option he or she has, that he or she can choose to employ if they choose. If they choose not to, that's fine.
Bill, what is our current standard as far as distance, as far as notification, which is what these sheets are?
Right? On CUPs, it's just adjoining property. We don't have conditional zoning, so we have no standard.
What are you saying for conditional use?
Just adjoining. The Siler Presbyterian Church, it's in my report, we sent notices just to the adjoining property owners,
Right.
and no more. Whether they were 1,000 feet away or 20 square feet, 20 feet away, only the adjoining.
So, I mean, we've had public hearings on this conditional zoning, we've had comments, we've had the planning board's comments, and in the interest of putting this to bed as a tool that could be used in Wesley Chapel, and it's currently written to where you cannot go below the standards that exist. What I'm looking for is to see if we have a motion to pass this with the language, perhaps with the adjustments of 2 meetings required, two meetings, public input meetings, so the one before one after, if you will, one before to get input to actually show them as described in, I think, Janine's version, and the second is the point you just brought up, what is the distance we want to put associated with that?
And I think what came out of the advance is better the communication we have with the residents. It's just better. So I like the fact that we're looking at going from, adjacent properties or 500 feet. I like the half a mile because it seems to incorporate a lot of people that will be affected by potential change.
Janine's suggestion was a mile, I think.
And Becky, what I was going to say is Becky, in my...
Quarter mile.
No, Becky's actually 500 feet.
And I would like to say too, that, for the audience doesn't see this out there, Matthews is 200 feet of property, that's supposed to be notified. So is Mineral Springs. Stallings is only the budding property owners. And I believe, is this the one, Bill, you said Weddington took 4 lawyers to do that?
Weddington, when I wrote this, Weddington was my first, and there were 4 sets of attorneys. No, excuse me. 4 sets of attorneys for the conservation subdivision language in Weddington. Not for conditional zoning, for conservation subdivision, 4 sets of attorneys.
I knew we were talking about these other games, 4 sets.
Yeah.
But I do think 500 feet is enough. The other thing I saw, and about letting comments go on our website, I think that is absolutely absurd. When we have a meeting and people can write in and make comments on our website about this conditional zoning and everything, I just don't think our website should be used for that. And the other thing is, if you're talking about 1,320 feet, what if somebody's property were next to a subdivision that had 200-something houses, and normally the village or the town sends them out, and then it's requested that the people, the owners, that you have to do that. And I think that, I can see them paying for it, but I don't think that whoever's trying to put something there should have to notify all these people. And particularly if you have 1,320, can you imagine how many houses?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, to me, I see, we're working, trying to do what Tucker and them want us to do, but to me, this is imposing a lot of things, and if somebody comes in here and sees this, well, there's so many things here that I think will affect them, they wouldn't want to do it. Yeah, I just see that.
Let me just say one thing about that, and this is what Siler is a living example, whereas we require them to give us the adjoining property owners, whether they're 222 or 222. I still go through them just to make sure, because invariably, and Siler was, they missed one, and so we added it to the list. The other thing that's in here is there is a reimbursement cost. We get reimbursed, just like when we get bonding fees, we get, it's in both Janine's and mine, is that we will be reimbursed for the postage costs.
But the way I had presented it was that, just like in Matthews, I believe it is, or Stallings?
They
Is it
provide the
Matthews or
labels?
Stallings? They send it to the property, the respective property owners. They
But,
send out the mail.
and that could be done,
The village is not responsible for doing that.
and that could be done. I want right of review. Whatever goes out, I want right of review, because ultimately,
and
it's
in-
my responsibility to make sure that
Right, and
people-
in there, it said that, we would review it, but it would be the developer or whoever was bringing it to the table would send out that notification. And the other part of it was, if there was a subdivision, just as a case in point, if there was a property, let's say on Billy Howard, and that was going to be developed into something. If you took a certain perimeter around that property, there may be two people in the subdivision that's notified, but the impact of that is gonna impact that entire subdivision. So reality is it should notify everyone in the subdivision. Just like when the county was looking to develop that parcel of land, and we were notified by the developer at the request of the county. Our village was notified because it bordered our village. So it's a similar concept, and it's being neighborly, and it's letting people know, this is what's going on. Come to whatever public hearing and hear what we're proposing.
Yeah, I think
It's just engaging the public.
the main thing that I got from the advance was we need more communication and more transparency when we make changes to affect the entire community. And the more, the better. So
I think that when we're talking about something like this, first of all, if we have two public meetings, that will catch anybody that missed it the first time around. Second of all, I think if we're talking about dealing with a subdivision, which if it's an individual owning the property and that individual is trying to develop, and you're talking about a subdivision, it could be costly. So could we just notify the HOA? And have them notify everybody? Since most of them have a website that they can put it on.
George is looking a little.
Here's my conundrum. What happens, I dealt with somebody today
Yeah.
who said, I've had problems contacting my HOA. I do not want to be in the position, well, we tried, we couldn't. To me, it's 500, 1320, I don't care. It's a finite number. If you're in there, you're covered. If you're not, you're not. I would rather it be yes or no rather than putting a little bit of discretion. I don't want to have that discretion.
Okay.
yeah,
Cheryl just pointed out something to me, and I'm glad, Janine, you brought it out. The way my language says is that, first of all, I said 500 feet. This information shall be provided in digital format and typed on address labels. The question is, who does the mailings? If, as you said, in Matthews, they do the mailings. I verify, I still want to verify.
They meaning the developer.
Developer. But we're out of it, there's nothing to reimburse us, because there's hard costs for the postage.
Right.
But the soft costs are stuffing envelopes. And in all due fairness, you go out a half mile, there are envelopes to stuff. And that's,
yeah, but I think we need to look at that, because if somebody decides to put a daycare in from the entrance of my subdivision, now all of a sudden, traffic all of a sudden, because of the daycare, affects my entire subdivision.
That's
But
what
my
it's-
house is far enough back from the entrance that I don't get notified.
Right.
And I don't know anything about it until they break ground on the thing.
right.
It's signed on the property beforehand, they're going to consider it, but it's signed.
There is a sign
Yes,
requirement.
there's a sign.
But the question, irrespective of the distance, the labor involved, and thank you for bringing that up, Janine, I do not have it that the applicant does the mailing. I have it that we do the mailing, they reimburse us for the postage costs.
Well, that keeps it all in-house too, because they can say, well, we mailed it to all the residents and all the neighbors, but there's no checks and balances there.
Well, he's to receive a list of the people that were to be notified. And then go ahead.
We had discussed this for quite a bit before, and it seemed like, this could be a lot of work in a short time span. And if you just have the letters provided by the applicant, they, you know, whether they're a postcard or whether they're a letter with an envelope and stamped, we can mail them, but you could be talking a lot of administrative legwork that we don't necessarily have people to do. Otherwise, if you're going to have us printing letters, you know, using paper, using our copier, stuffing envelopes, stamping envelopes.
When you make things so difficult, that's what happens. I think we're being over exaggerating when we say 1,320 feet. I think it's over exaggerating what we should be doing.
Well, we're hearing different things. We've got a mile, we've got half a mile, which a mile is 5,280 feet. 2,640 feet is half a mile. 1,320 is a quarter mile.
You're saying
500
2
is
meetings plus a public hearing.
Yeah.
And this is 3 times. This is 2 public meetings and a public hearing.
Well, actually, the way we craft it is that we would have to schedule that, unless we do 2 separate notices, we schedule the second meeting when we schedule the first one. So they know that meeting 1 is on October the 1st, meeting 2 is on October the 15th. Because last thing we want to do is to do another mailing. It's just another way of making a mistake. So we do, whether we have 1 public informational meeting or 2, we do 1 mailing for it, and we do a separate mailing for the public hearing.
I'll go along with whatever council wants, but I think the transparency and the increased communication is my main concern.
But I could live with 1320. I think 500 is too confined. But I do think that the developer should do the mailing, or at least do the preparation of it. If he wants us to drop it in a mailbox, so be it. But, and then
It could be validated.
well, right, and then they could be, exactly, then you'd have them, you'd know that number 1, they were gonna go out. Number 2, you could verify that they're going to the respective people, and then they're sent out timely.
But that seems a little weird, don't you think, to do all that, but you gotta bring it back to the town so they can verify they've done it? That's weird.
How do you verify?
I don't know, but I just don't see us getting anywhere fast with this situation.
How do you
Fees, about
come up
29.
with an alternative? How do we
Well, I
verify?
just-
That's all I'm asking. I have no problem with entertaining other ideas. I need another idea to entertain.
What about our office staff doing it? We have Linnea up here working.
Well,
We
then-
can,
And then
but
we pay them.
the point is,
It's very expensive and time consuming.
I don't think we should incur any legal expense. If whatever expense we incur, we get back from the developer.
I don't have a problem with that.
either way.
The only thing we don't get back from the developer is the time of the staff and.
Well, the ink, the paper,
Right, all
the time.
the material costs.
Get back to postage, I think.
So the biggest problem is then the distance. We need to come to a decision on the distance.
Well, I heard Gene say
Jean,
she'd be
is that
okay
right?
with a quarter. Mike said he'd go along with the consensus of the council. Becky's at 500.
I'm at 500.
Okay.
I think more people, I don't want anybody to be able to come up to a council meeting and say, you didn't let us know, we're affected by this, and we had no idea.
But they're going to know. 500 feet, that's a long ways, Mike.
If you look at.
That's why I said to have a picture,
That's why we
because
have these nice big
500
pictures
feet
that
isn't
we look at.
necessarily very far
If you
on
look at
some
this
parts.
So
parcel,
look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
well,
Look,
in some cases, that may only be 7.
What if you put one right there? If you take it, if you put one right here, you get all those houses. One time it's on all of them, put right here.
Yeah,
Yes.
I get it.
Okay.
I'm good with 1320.
Did you go for the center of these when you drew these?
The computer, no,
It's,
it's from every external boundary. That's why they're not concentric circles.
Okay,
And Bill didn't do those, it's the computer. You don't want Bill, let the computer do it.
that's fine. Just making sure.
May I ask a question?
We generally don't take a lot of input. We try to keep things moving, so.
I guess you have to break the time.
That's
so we
fine.
haven't voted it, or we were just talking, we haven't really voted.
Okay.
On anything, yeah, no, I know. I'm fine when it comes. When the motion is Do we incorporate the 2 meetings, which again, I happen to agree that's a good idea,
2 meetings is fine.
plus the public hearing?
Plus the-
So it's a total of 3. But the 2 are public input, the first 2 I'm talking about public input, that I think Janine suggested. And we're talking about the distance, quarter mile, been suggested, 500's been suggested. And then the mailings, how to do that. And again, if they present the letters already ready to go, then you've got a way of validating it, and it's less imposing on the staff. I don't know why that's necessarily odd, but okay, I mean,
Other towns do it that way. I mean, well,
And I have one other thing that says, all citizens shall be able to post on the city website following the community meeting any comments or questions in an effort to continuously provide an arena for the open dialogue and transparency. I do not think, if you're going to have 2 PIMs, you're going to have a public hearing, and to put things on the website is sheer ridiculous.
there are 2 versions out there which we haven't agreed upon. One is Bill's, and one is Janine's. So I picked the 3 big items out of
This says,
Janine's, well, 2 in the new one, which is the mailing, which is the good one.
And didn't you say something about that you were going to keep a record of the comments that were made?
Yeah, let me discuss. Mayor, if I could, I'm going to get to the comments, but let me get to something. I think if we did it this way, it would save time, money, but still maintain accuracy.
Right.
They provided the letters, and here are the letters that are stamped. They give me, here are all of the people who we notified. I have to go through that anyway. And let's say they missed 2 people. Yes, I think I can do 2 letters and put them in there. That's not the big issue. The big issue is I verify that this stack of letters are the ones that are correct. If there are 2 or 3, and invariably there'll be 2 or 3 that are missing, I can do that. That doesn't take a lot of time. Okay? So if you ask me what's the best of both worlds, they provide me who they did it, they provide them already done, and then we can just put them in the mail. And if I have to add 2, I'll do it. As far as comments, one of the things that I think is absolutely paramount is that staff be at the pins. I represent the town. If there are any questions that are asked about zoning, let them come, the answers come from me because I represent the village. And if there are questions about what was said at the meetings, I give my reports to planning board, I give my reports to council. You have me as an unbiased person, neither pro-developer, no the pro-people who are against it, just the facts. I give the facts of what was said. And I believe you guys know that I do things as impartial as can be. So whether you want them on the website or not, I'm there, and you can always ask me questions.
I see Becky's comments, or she has a valid point about people just arbitrarily being able to put comments on our website, and we'll have to censor those, which I don't think we should do, we're just not allowed for. But I'm more, for me, more is better. I'll go along with Janine on a quarter mile. Elaine and Becky want to say 500 feet, but we haven't heard from Brad, so I'll press him for his opinion.
I actually like a quarter mile. I think, I understand it may impact a number of, homes if it's near a subdivision. So be it. I mean, we're talking about a tool that provides a developer with, I won't say easier, but at least a better way to get input, et cetera. Well, the only way you're gonna get input is if you have people.
Right.
So, I like providing the tool. I accept that it will defer some of the upfront costs to the project is, what's the word, acceptable, if I can use that word, potentially acceptable, and therefore you need the input. So, I mean, they still have to do the same work they did, conditional use or conditional zoning, I mean, in terms of what they have to submit in the end.
So what do we need to do before on this? A motion for what?
Well, I mean, I'm hearing a few things, but I think the motion, go ahead, Bill.
Well, and if it's the will of the council of 1320, I can change that. I do need, the way it reads now is that they're just providing us labels and we do the mailing.
Right.
If you want it different, if you tell me the way you want it, and that motion is adopted, then the text will be changed accordingly.
It's the text I provided. It's the text I provided.
And the text that Janine provided, which you guys have, says, and I'll read it to you.
For that now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Well, it says follow same as Matthew's format.
That was on the clean copy? 'Cause
Yeah,
I think I spelled it out on the red line, and then when we spoke.
Okay, but you do have the Matthews format in here,
Okay.
in this, because that's what Becky was alluding to before. And it says, let me just read it for Matthews.
I know it was part of our discussion, I don't know. if it was
Right.
in there. Is it?
Quite honestly, I don't see it right here, but if it's will of the council that the applicant provides us with the stamped envelope letters and stamped envelopes, and a list of all of the properties. Opera word stamped envelopes.
Oh,
with-
okay. And may I?
Oh, you got it?
It says, "The applicant shall furnish the village." Okay, let me read what it says here, and then, because it says both, I think, in here. "The applicant shall furnish the village with mailing labels that depict the names and addresses of the owners or current residents of all properties within said whatever foot area. Postage paid envelopes and documentation sufficiently describing proposed project meeting." So whether it's postage paid and stamped, and on a label, or if it's a printed envelope, it's an addressed envelope. But it's not clearly defined
Right.
either way here.
I think what I've heard some folks say is that they want the labels addressed and stamped and stuffed. And I get a list of the labels knowing who all these people are. And if, again, I verify it, and if there are a couple missing.
So it does, and documentation sufficiently describing the proposed project and meeting information. That's what the letter would.
Exactly.
Or a postcard, it could be a postcard
It could be a
too.
postcard. It could be a
And it doesn't have to
postcard.
be a stuffed envelope.
No, it could definitely be a postcard.
However, they can manage to notify people.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And one of the key things here is there has to be a pre-application meeting with me, where I go
Yes.
over the rules, this is what's going on, this is what happens anyway. This is what you're gonna have to do to pass muster, and this is where I explain everything to the applicant.
So here's my suggestion. My suggestion is that we make a motion that accepts the language that, let me put it this way, that Bill laid out with the comments that Janine provided, that Bill has indicated as he would accept, because it helps clarify some of the language, along with the 2 meetings, along with the 1,320 feet for the notifications, and then along with the letters or postcards for notification for the property residents in that 1,320 feet being provided along with a list stamped with the appropriate postage.
And
I think that,
my only concern about that is there were a number of other things, and Becky just alluded to one just now about what goes on the website. In order to fairness, there were some other suggestions that Janine had brought up that I've glossed over.
or you suggested again, if I remember correctly. Hold on.
We get so many copies, we have about a stack of
Right.
copies.
So I just want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding.
What if,
Do
can
you
I
want
make
to
a
do a clean
suggestion?
copy then?
Right, can I make a suggestion, just a suggestion, or just a proposal, is that we make a motion to, I don't know if I want to use the word accept, but, make a motion to have conditional zoning with proper documentation compiled based on Bill's prior document and the comments that we've just addressed and discussed in council of what I had put together. So conditionally, approve conditional zoning with those two documents coming together and meeting.
Okay, but then we have to, I guess, have a separate to approve the actual tax.
We could have a special
I'm
meeting
looking at
specifically for
Georgia.
that, if that's okay.
George and Bill.
Let me just say this. If council approves something tonight, what I feel comfortable doing is taking my text, making the changes that you said, the 1320, the two meetings, the labels that they provided, and I make those changes. Just like I said before, in all due fairness to everyone, there's some other changes that you need to propose that I have not specifically, you've got them in there. You've got Janine's proposed text. I haven't gone over all of those changes with you. There were a number of changes.
But you did comment that there were some that you agreed with.
There are some that I definitely did agree with.
And that's what he was saying. So anything that
But
you
there were a
agreed
couple-
with,
there were still
that
a
you were
couple-
okay with.
Right,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Because that was
The ones
just
that you agreed
clarifying
to
certain things.
include the ones that you had a question on, such as the one Becky mentioned.
Right, the ones that
Which, since council is saying no, then that
Yeah, so
categorically is
take
off the
that out.
table.
Right,
Again, all of the things that I put in were only suggestions.
right, exactly.
So
Well, that's
take it out.
why he's trying to get guidance.
Yeah, I just want to make
I'm
sure,
trying to give him the guidance.
if you guys do adopt something, I want to make sure it's right. And what I don't want, Bill, you put something past us, and that's not what I'm trying to, not what anyone's trying to.
I'm looking up at a marked up copy. and that's-
There is a marked up copy that says, I am okay with this.
That's correct.
And
That's
if,
the one I'm
unless
referring to.
you are not okay with I'm okay, then,
there were certain, like, I had put for planner and council to be included on certain things. And I don't know
But he's already addressed that when he said from now on, he is going to tell us.
if, okay.
Okay, so
We
that's
have
pretty much
about
addressed.
5 sets of this, changing of you and Bill and Janine and back and forth.
No,
So
but
it's
not
hard to
really.
decipher.
Not really. I only had one markup and then a clean copy.
All right. It sounds like what we've got to do is have you give us a clean copy, accepting the changes that you agreed to.
that you
And
need.
the 3 items we just discussed.
The fourth being the one that Becky brought up, that council has said, no, we are not going to do.
4. Yes, sorry.
With the web
Yes.
posting, that council agreed, no, we are not going to
Right.
do.
Right.
Correct.
Incorporating the
We'll have to-
1320.
We'll do it at our next meeting, where we
amount.
can look at it, rather than approve anything.
How many
I think we're conditionally
Okay.
saying I think
Okay.
conditionally, I hate to use that word. I think we are looking at potentially moving forward with this, but let's get a clean version of the document for the April meeting.
And what I will do is this, and that is, I'm very comfortable with this. And for that April meeting, you will have the text box that says, this change that I agreed with. So again, there's transparency here,
Right.
because no one is asking, well, no, I will be as transparent as can be. This is what I agreed with. And if I agreed with it, and it'll be in there, with the exception that we just went in, and it's going to be 1320, the 2 meetings, the applicant provides everything.
To me, this has been so difficult, Bill, because you're a planner.
Right.
And the two of you really sit down and we got all these copies with red, green, blue lines, blocks out here, blocks out there. I mean, you're the planner. I mean, I can see us putting comments here, but to sit down and you have to change back and forth because, say, one of us decided we don't like that, we want this, and then we have to go through all that. I just think it's difficult for a planner to live like that.
It's the nature of the beast.
No, I don't think so.
This is a new concept to the village, so we're trying to do our best efforts, and I've used this term, I'm going to use it again, Wesley Chapelizing it, and making it, for a better word, work well within the current confines of our structure. And I think we're there, I really do, I think we are close.
And make sure everyone's opinion gets heard.
Absolutely. It is a good point. I actually missed that one someplace.
Jane's
Which
looking
one,
to
Becky,
see
go ahead.
if how many others there are, because it's a very small number.
No,
We could take it.
we're not gonna take care of it now. We're moving on. because we didn't allocate that much time.
Okay.
And Bill has marching orders.
And those marching orders to bring a clean set for the April meeting.
Except with the exception of 4 items that
We've already addressed.
and only accepting the one.
And the ones that you said you were.
Right, and those are the ones that you guys will be getting.
It can be amended again, it's just, let's
Of
get
course
it.
you can.
Right,
Let's
so
get it
let's
copied,
get it.
And this way we can all look at it again and make sure there's nothing in there, because I'd rather not just approve something conditionally.
Okay.
And then, as Bill said, come back a week from now and say, I didn't say that, or you didn't say that, or whatever. And I appreciate the work that everybody's put into it and discussion. But we need to move along.
Okay.
I don't know that we're gonna solve anything this evening. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a land use plan review. And what I essentially meant on that, and I thought we might have more comments from the planning board on their land use, because they haven't.
They haven't.
So, in essence, 'cause I do want to get essentially people invited that are property owners, if there have been any changes between the prior land use and this, to specifically get a letter. With that being said, I don't have anything to give them at this point, so I'm going to carry this over.
And let me ask you this.
Yes.
Do you want this, right now it's in the planning board's hands. And planning board, we had a joint meeting the other day, and they know that time is of the essence. I can go ahead and put that on the agenda as an agenda item for the next planning board meeting to make sure that this does not get forgotten, because this is in their hands.
Well, there are two things I want to make plain to the council, okay? When we do statements of consistency and reasonableness, we can actually say in there, let's say we approve conditional zoning or senior housing or conservation subdivision, and we still don't have the land use plan where it needs to be. We can say it's not consistent, as much the same as he did with the conditional zoning here. The proposed text is neither consistent nor inconsistent. Okay, we can do that. It doesn't set a precedence if we are going to evolve the land use plan to match the text at that point. So, yeah, it's a chicken and the egg thing. They both should walk hand in hand, but we can't. We all know the situation with the de-annexation petitions, so we have to move forward on what we can move forward on, is what I'm saying.
Right.
We need to have public input sessions to the land use plan. In retrospect, back to comments Becky made at the advance, if I had to do this over again, we'd probably do it differently, but we already had something in process. And actually, from time to time, I think it's better to put something in front of folks and say, I hate it, rather than give nothing and have a blank slate, everybody say, whatever. But irregardless, where we're at.
The thing that we're talking about, as Brad didn't say, and I will say was, and I'll say it again, when we interviewed planners, the planner said before you get a land use plan, you need to talk with the landowners. Right now you have petitioners, leave me out of the situation, I'm talking about all these other people who have concerns, and they're on the map and on the land use plan, and I think they need to be notified to come and discuss this, and that's what the planner said, before you do a land use plan, you need to notify the landowners, and that's what he would do, that all of us did, that they would go and talk with these people and get some ideas of what they
I
want.
understand. We already had a draft, though, from the planning board. So rather than throw that all out, I'm proposing to use that going forward. We're still going to have the meetings. There's not going to be any approval until we have the meetings. So the fact that you keep reiterating it is important. That's why we're going to have the meetings. I don't quite understand why we continue to go back and forth on this, because we've got work, unless you're just telling me take everything the planning board, you throw it out the door and start from scratch. If that's what you're saying, the council agrees, we can do that as well.
I have a question just relating to this. I just have a
Yes.
question with what was written here.
Yes, sorry.
It says, agree on any changes if necessary before calling for public input sessions with mailed invitations to any property owner where their proposed property classification may have changed. So what this suggests, is this, I'm asking, is this suggesting that it is an exclusive meeting of only those?
No, it was
Or
still-
that in addition to the regular format of calling for a public hearing, there will be specific invitations to landholders? Is that what
Where
it
is that
says?
indication?
No, I would not propose, and we can discuss that as a council, and we're not taking a motion tonight because we're not in a position to do so.
Okay.
But what I was suggesting was specifically for anyone that has changed between the 2003 land use plan and the current version that's being offered up, proposed, available, or even just offered for comments, that they would get specific invitations, and then there would be like we would any other public hearing, announce it, send out announcements, the sunshine list, and however we always address the others, and it's a big meeting, anybody can come. All our meetings are, we can't hold a closed session.
Well, no, but the way this read, it seemed like this was gonna be a private meeting, and that's why I'm asking was I interpreting that
I should
correctly?
have written it a little bit differently, you're right, thank you.
Okay, that's all.
okay. No, I will write myself a note to explain that. Thank you. Maybe can I have another thing?
Okay.
So with the land use plan,
Yes.
it is in the planning board's hands. For their March meeting, I will again bring it up for them to consider, even if they just punt it back to you guys. They've already voted on it, but the chairman asked that the planning board reconsider it.
Yes, and what I believe the biggest issue was, and again, I'm not trying to, they can make whatever adjustments they want, was consistency. Where some schools were one way, some were the other, and things like that. So, and the odd thing was one of the planning board members said to me, well, you changed it. No, it hasn't touched since it was done. And matter of fact, I believe if you go back in the minutes, it may show where I asked that very question back then. That being said, I don't want to go backwards. I want to just say, look at this again, see if it's consistent, see if it's what you want to say, and then we'll start calling for our public input sessions.
So is it the council's expectation, I use the word expectation because it's in their hands, that they, at their March meeting,
Ideally, yes.
come back with, we've changed this, we haven't changed this, or here it is, back to you guys again?
Sure. Ideally, that's what I would like. If they want to look at it again until April, I don't see where that necessarily impacts the other items we need to talk about. It's an important item, but it's going to take us public input sessions and public hearing. Those all take time to schedule and get done.
And Bill, I think what you're gonna find is after our advance and our joint meeting with the planning board, I think you're gonna find some of the opinions on the planning board, some of the opinions have evolved, if I can use that word. So,
Okay.
we'll see.
Well, I will put that on the agenda. Agenda's going out tomorrow. I will put that on the agenda for the March planning board meeting.
Thank you. The next item on here was to consider clustering conservation subdivision request planning board input. And Bill emailed all of us copies of Weddington and Marvin's, Weddington is called as RCD, what does Marvin call it?
They just call it large lot subdivisions,
Large tract.
large tract subdivisions.
Okay.
And they're both different animals.
So my question to the council, are you guys okay with, and we kind of said we would agree to it, to consider it?
Yeah.
Okay, of having this go forth before the planning board, to have them please take a look at it.
Again, I'm gonna go back to this document, I apologize, but, so this specifically says Weddington's, but I think.
Which document are you talking about?
The one,
My
Oh,
the
yours.
little cover letter.
Because that's what I was told, and then we got Weddington with it. So they can be held Marvin's as well.
Right, so, I like Marvin's a lot, and I think a combination of the two of them would be a phenomenal
I
document.
think they should get both.
I agree, that's all I'm saying, so like, I was curious why I had Marvin's and then it's only called for Whittington's.
Because
So,
we have
right,
sent out
timing,
afterward,
got
and, yeah, after I formed this, because we have our new 2-week deadline, and it was on time, almost.
So will this be able to make it to their session?
Yeah,
For this month?
there is session with the land use plan, and this is,
Chock full.
it is beyond belief full. We have a
I'm
public,
not, let me set an expectation. I am not expecting this to come back from them in March. I want them to start considering it.
I'd like to
So-
put a timeframe on it.
Oh, the timeframe's fine, but I think March might be a little unrealistic. That's my opinion, given what's on their agenda.
Well, I would say no later than their April. I mean, really, I don't think it's all that difficult.
I think that's reasonable. If that's something you'd like to suggest, that's.
I'd also like to point out that with the joint meeting with the planning board, is they're just as dysfunctional as we are sometimes. And it may sound like it's an easy thing to do, but just like this is supposed to be an easy thing to do, it's not.
No, but you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
It's created twice here. So all you have to do is combine them.
Sounds good on paper.
Again, I'll use the term, we need to Wesley Chapelize it. So,
Right.
okay, so-
if I could ask the council a question, because I do have a meeting with the planning board chair prior to the meeting. Is it the will of the council to move forward quicker with the land use plan as opposed to conservation? In other words, do you want something from the planning board regarding the land use plan coming out of their March meeting?
You're wanting to prioritize.
Yes.
Ideally, yes.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you
Senior
this.
housing has to be, I believe, in my opinion, first. Okay, what are the last tweets after the two planning board and council members meet? Then I think the land use is probably next, and conservation. I'd like to try and be in conformity with our land use plan as soon as
That's what I was
possible.
going to ask. So this will impact land use.
This is the conservation subdivision, correct? Yes, it will impact, we have,
So
it
you
needs to
kind
be
of have to
addressed
talk
in the
about
land.
it
I
together.
know, but you can also say, in your consistency, that it's not consistent if you agree to go forward with one without the other being done. The other is going to take, I mean, realistically, it's 2 months time frame for the land use plan if we acted on it now. Between the public input sessions, calling for a public hearing, et cetera. I'm just trying to give you a realistic.
Sure. But what are the other items that they're addressing besides the land use, the senior housing, and?
For, on the 23rd,
Mhm.
we've got Siler Church coming in, we've got Brookmead Final Plat, we
Okay.
have text change for signs that they really need to take action on text changes for the signs.
They're going out to do measurements, and it happens to affect another gentleman's property.
Right, and am I missing something else? No, cell tower, not yet.
That's it.
No, cell tower is not on for the March meeting.
Okay, so there's 4 items.
There are 4 items on there, and this would be, land use plan would be 5, conservation would be 6.
Okay. So between this meeting and April's meeting,
My only, they may have to call a special meeting.
okay,
They may have to call a special meeting.
then let them call a special meeting.
Well, I would encourage that, given the timeframe,
Right.
crunch we have with this. If their agenda is too large and they're willing to call for a special meeting so we can move forward in a timely fashion, let's do that.
I'll call the chairman tomorrow.
Me too.
Thank you.
I'll let him yell at me. Yeah, that's fine.
Just want to move forward.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Item 16 is the committee appointment. And we've got an application for Kelly Pearson to join the Park and Rec Committee. And so I so designate. I do appoint Kelly to the Park and Rec Committee. Appreciate her volunteering. Great.
Choose the resident, right?
Okay.
Okay. Next item is the 17A is the landscape maintenance. The RFP, Cheryl?
We put out the landscape RFP. We had 7, I believe, that attended the pre-bid meeting.
Good night.
Well, I think a couple were from one company, but yeah, we had pretty good showing there. One sent a letter and said he didn't think he was a good match for the town and he chose not to bid. We ended up receiving 3 bids. Lucas Landscape, Taylor and Sons, and Ladam Landscaping. The low bid was Lucas Landscaping. I checked references on Lucas. They do the Village of Lake Parks. They do a 29-unit townhome in South Park and Valentine Village Shopping Center, which is a mixed use, and all of them gave excellent references on him.
Do any of these work in Wesley Chapel? I know Taylor does ours right now, but does Lucas do anything in Wesley Chapel?
I didn't ask him that. Yeah, I don't know.
One thing, and Elaine and I were talking about this in advance, is Parks and Rec has not looked at this yet in detail. We may want to choose to let this go to Parks and Rec first, get some input from them before we decide on this. As much as I hate to delay, especially given the time of the year and what this is pertaining to, I would really like to give them a chance to input on this before we move forward.
This was emailed to them.
This was emailed to them, and also, they all approved the RFP. Once you have an RFP, you know, unless there's some reason to,
There have been some concerns, expressed by a couple of Parks and Rec people, that this either there's bad communication in reading the RFP, or, I mean, these are some pretty odd numbers on some of these proposals. I would really like to see us, be going into the city on this, have an opportunity to give some feedback on feedback.
the low bidder, Lucas, did contact me last week, and I sent his contact info to John Lepke. John had not contacted him. Lucas called me again and hadn't heard from them. The person that was actually mowing the land was Taylor and Sons. Their bid was a total of $20,039. This bid was $16,639. So it didn't seem too outrageously different from someone that has actually been out here doing the land. The high bid seemed very high. It was $63,711.
I would like to see us delay on this until after Tuesday's Parks and Rec meeting. As much as I,
Yeah, I want to move
I
forward.
understand.
We can't really wait. It's growing season. We're
well,
gonna,
we've been lucky to have cold weather and really not have a lot of grass growing or anything else out there. Very little grass at the park, but that's a whole separate issue. I really want Parks and Rec to be able to chime in on this. And I tried, I reached out to, via email to Parks and Rec members and gotten 0 response.
so that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, my only question with this was on the Lucas bid, they did not put a, amount for the dry pond maintenance. Were they saying they were gonna include that, or?
I think it was just included, yeah. I mean,
it was included?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I can ask them. I don't think that's a major item.
Because I reviewed it, like you said, we had a bid document that went out and there was approval on that. I'm ready to go ahead and accept the bid. I don't see what discussion there would be if you approved what was sent out to do the maintenance. I'm confused with that. I would go ahead and make the motion for the Lucas Landscaping to do the landscaping for $16,639 as outlined in the bid proposal and with their fees that they came back with.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, now we got the second.
Now we have a discussion.
So my only problem is the dry pond maintenance, which is not a total nothing, because with Taylor zoning 65 for Town Hall, and 330 for Dogwood Park, and the final one is 225 and 675 for a total of 900. I'm just,
I'll amend my motion. If you want to
Thank you.
rescind your second? So I'll amend my motion to, go with Lucas Landscaping, providing the dry pond maintenance was either incorporated into that 1639, or that the dry pond maintenance would be no more than $495 to match the Taylor and Sons. Is that fair?
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we've got a motion and a second, further discussion?
Would you said 195 for the,
$495. There's 12 wood and Town Hall was $495 from Taylor and Sons.
right.
So if it's incorporated,
Yeah.
great. Otherwise, if they're gonna charge us, their charge can be no more than the total of the $495.
Right.
for the
Still
two
makes
properties.
them the lowest bidder.
Right,
Still is, right, it still makes them the lowest bidder.
right. I'm ready.
So,
Anything else? Mike, I know you said, okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Cheryl, for your work on this, and Janine, I know you did some, thank you.
So, relating to Wesley Chapel Friends of Parks and Rec, I would like to make a motion that we approve the schedule, given us last month. We had already approved the April 4th date, but I'd like us to approve May 2nd, July the 4th, October 3rd, and December the 5th.
Also with various events.
Right, that's what Gary
That
said.
they go out and publicize.
Would you like to know what events are on what days?
Sure.
yeah, so I was gonna ask.
Okay.
She has it, but go ahead.
People
Go
know
ahead,
that.
go ahead, Lenny.
Okay, so we know April 4th is the Easter egg hunt. May 2nd is barbecue contest, talent show, and festival. The 5K has been dropped. Janine, I know you'll appreciate why. July 4th is the fishing rodeo. October 3rd is the Fall Arts Festival and Spook Trail, and December 5th is the Christmas in the Park.
Okay.
And all these events will meet the criteria that have been set forth by council for events in the park.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous, thank you. I certainly would like to thank Wesley Chapel Friends of Park for putting these on. I think it's a lot of organization and it does a lot for the community.
Excuse me.
Yeah, okay, let's take a 2-minute recess. All right, it's supposed to be at 9 o'clock, my bad. Item 18 is a full-time planner. Becky?
Yes, that's me. Everybody ready?
Yep. Cheryl back.
Okay. I said that we need a full-time planner instead of 2 days a week, because right now, we may not be in the pickle we're in if we had had a full-time planner here all the time, in my opinion. Because we have more time to work on things and get the plan going. So I think we need to get a full-time planner 4 days a week. I think our clerk works 4 days a week, so we could, do the same thing we had last time, and do a 4 day a week thing, in my opinion. And that would get him, doing what we need to get done here in the village quicker. So I would like to make a motion that we, give In Focus the proper notice that we need to give them, and immediately start looking for a full-time planner.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'd like to second simply so that we can talk about this, because actually I don't agree at this point that we need a full-time
Okay.
planner.
Discussion?
The reason I feel this way is because I don't think the problem is with the planner. I think the problem is with the fact that we haven't looked at our ordinances, basically the laws under which we operate, that they have to be changed in order for us to move forward, which is why we are considering conditional zoning, conservation development, senior housing, all of these things. And I think once we have those in place, we will need a full-time planner. But at this point, I don't think we do.
I'd also like to add that the timing of this really would kind of affect a lot of other things. If we want to look at this again, maybe 6 months from now, I think that would be fair. But at this point, Bill's got himself too tightly entwined with too many things that are time sensitive.
I agree with, what both of them said. I think that it's definitely something that is going to be necessary down the pike once we implement what we're working towards. I don't think right now is the optimum time to introduce this change.
We got a very strong letter from Representative Craig Horn this week, a very strong letter. And I think with 2 days a week, if some of us come in and talk to Bill, and other people come in and talk to Bill, and you think we can meet the deadline that we're supposed to meet, but I just think we need a full-time planner, I really do.
Bill,
And
Bill just mentioned he's got both days open this week. I think, yes, he has busy, but quite honestly, this kind of goes back to some of the discussions we had on hours for the village. And, there were quite a number of folks suggesting perhaps we even shorten the amount of hours that Bill or the office is open. And I think we decided against that. We decided to keep it for the 4 days. I think Bill is, and if In Focus, let me put it this way. If In Focus had another planner that was not, coming here, that had no idea what Wesley Chapel was about, etc., I might feel a little bit differently. Bill knows the village, he knows the area, and he's just I think he's just a wealth of knowledge.
I'm not saying that he isn't
I
intelligent
know.
or well enough.
Particular.
No, I am definitely not picking on him.
Yes.
I am just saying, originally, when we discussed this, and I recall, because Howard made the motion, I recall, we were supposed to have a plan of 3 days a week, and then that was what we were supposed to get, and then somewhere along the line, the contract got changed to 2 days a week. So I'm not sure why that happened, that's immaterial right now. I'm just saying, I think we need one, and to get us where we need to be in the next few months.
And Bill is not there's two things here. We still essentially, because of the time we actually use of Bill, was 2 days, but we also have the use of the code enforcement. Remember, it's a sort of package deal, plus the mapping guide, plus other guys. So, and then secondly, I think I agree with what Mike was saying, and Janine echoed it, that as we go through and get more, and Elaine as well, as we get more detail, and more of these options available, we may need it. But, and even now, we can add it if we need to, we can go over budget. Is that information public?
What?
The one that Bill shared with me today?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and Bill shared, because I think he's supposed to go, I think he's got a couple of days in May, if I'm correct. Nadine Bennett, who also did a lot more, probably more work on the ordinances than Bill did, is now working for In Focus. So that basically means when Bill is out, we won't skip a beat, in my opinion at least. Nadine can jump right in, she knows the ordinances, was willing to come and learn something about it, learn more about how it's changed since she hasn't been here. So I think we're okay for now. I do think, we do need to keep it in mind, and given I think there's a 6-month advance notice, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sheriff. So we do need to keep that in mind as well, absolutely, but I don't think the time is now. So, but there's a motion and a second, we've had a discussion. So all those in favor? All those opposed?
I just want to be clear, I'm not opposed to the full-time plan, I'm just opposed to it right now.
Agreed.
Okay, next item is the CSU, which is the Cabarrus Stanley Union Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan Resolution. Cheryl?
This is something that we got from the county. It's the regional plan, and it's been approved by FEMA, so at this point, the town must adopt the plan by resolution.
And again, this doesn't, as the Union County plan, is the way I believe this works, doesn't subject us, or, what's the word, not subject us, but
We don't have any obligations.
require us to do it,
No.
essentially, other than to adopt the plan.
Mhm.
Because municipalities have to adopt a hazard mitigation plan, and we, by accepting into it, don't have an obligation, any obligations within this to provide anything for ourselves.
I think our only obligation was, if you look on our website and there's a little blurb about NC Ready, I think it is about, go to this website to find out how to prepare for disaster. It's kind of public information that we have to keep.
Do we have to
Open.
provide any sort of workshops for it?
No,
Is there anything,
I don't think we'd even be qualified to do a workshop on it.
well, and that's kind of where I was thinking is, I know when I come from, I guess it's 521 down Newtown, you see evacuation routes, and as you get closer to the village, you don't see those.
Well, keep in mind, though, that this is the hazard mitigation plan. This is to
So-
prevent hazards, not to deal with hazards.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a resolution to adopt the Cabarrus Stanley Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Somebody-
I don't think I'm gonna read this one. So, but in either case, this is again acknowledging it. I think Janine brought up an interesting point that we can address separate than that is perhaps on our website have information regarding evacuation zones and things to that effect. We should be able to get that from our Union County, what's his title?
Well, I think it's good to have a link, because if something changes, we're not
Right.
necessarily on top of things. Yeah.
Okay. So in this case, do I have a motion to adopt this?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the Cabarrus Stanley Union Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion?
I just want to clarify, it's what this is saying is, it says, per both federal and state legislation, a FEMA-approved hazard mitigation plan is required for communities to remain eligible for hazard mitigation grant program funds following a presidentially declared disaster, and for state public assistance funds following a state-declared disaster. A hazard mitigation plan is also required for communities to remain eligible for future grant funds available through FEMA's pre-disaster mitigation and flood mitigation system programs, for anyone who's unaware.
That is Union County.
Right.
Okay, so we've got a motion, second. Anything else? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next item is to consider the town hall usage policy. I apologize, I thought when I sent out the most recent version, I updated it completely. I hadn't taken off the track changes, so I emailed you a day or two later the revised version. I didn't change anything from it other than remove the track changes, so you don't get all the cross-outs and 47 different colors. So, particular comments or thoughts?
I have one comment, Brad.
Yeah.
It's a request, we have the price, $100 per event for up to 4 hours with an additional refundable fee deposit per time. Additional time is $25 per hour. This is to cover village expenses like heating, cleaning, etc. Request for waiver of the rental costs from nonprofit or community group will be considered by the village. So how will you consider, because I know somebody else has called me and mentioned that, we don't have any money, but we might want to use it. And I said, we haven't adopted this yet. So how would you decide who pays and who doesn't? I mean, is that?
Again, this is nonprofit or considered.
But it says on community group. So, what would you,
Some of the discussion was from Wesley Woods.
right,
I don't think they have a formal HOA per se, but wanted to know if they could meet here. That would be community group to me. So that would be this council that would decide, in my opinion.
So it'd just be a case by case basis.
Not, the mayor wants to get out of the.
I'm just asking,
No,
you
I'm
know,
not.
go to the
I
side.
know you are. I'm
Who
making
pays
fun of
and who
me,
doesn't?
honestly.
Who pays and who doesn't?
I had one comment, and that was, it says, once your reservation is confirmed, a $50 deposit or payment in full is required to hold your reservation. And then cost is $100, plus there's a key deposit. I hate to have people paying $50 and then paying the other $50 and then paying the $25. Seems like it should just be payment in full at the time of a reservation.
That's a good point. Are you gonna have to make a new line item in your budget agenda?
Well, for now, it can go in miscellaneous fees until June, and we could do a line item in July.
Make a separate line item?
Yeah.
And the only other thing is you don't have here any sort of a deposit for, in the event of a damage.
Well, depending on the
I
damage.
think we mentioned it should be in here as far as being able to, I didn't ask for a deposit, but I said something along those.
You know, a refundable deposit, but if
Okay.
something's damaged or broken or,
If that is not done, it may affect future meeting reservations and also encourage a charge for cleaning, repair, etc. Like the last bullet on the last page.
but we don't ask for it up front, is what I'm saying.
No, nor do I think we should. I mean, I think we're assuming people are adults, and that's my opinion, but I'll defer to the council.
And the only other thing I'd like to add to that is, are we doing this based on, for example, homeowners association, if there was damage, you'd be going after damages from the homeowners association, not necessarily the president of the homeowners association, or a single individual.
You could address the management
The
company
entity,
on behalf of it. But for example, for someone who doesn't have an HOA, i.e. Wesley Woods,
It would be the
who would you be
individual.
going after?
Exactly.
whoever reserved the room.
Right, for example,
By reserving the room, to me, you have taken our responsibility for the room.
exactly, so then.
Now, it doesn't mean,
Running
again,
for right
if
now.
there's an HOA, you go to the HOA, if it's an HOA meeting.
And, you know, it's not something where you think someone's gonna come in here and intentionally damage,
No.
but things happen. And, you know, it's gotta be covered somehow.
Somebody comes in and spills a big jug of great Kool-Aid on the floor or something, that's gotta be taken care of.
I agree, but.
And I think if Stan, for example, reserved it for our homeowners association, and some resident came, I don't think he'd want to be personally responsible for that as the president of the HOA.
And we don't drink Kool-Aid.
Right?
We say it here, no drinks or whatever.
Well, I'm just, there's always
There's
some.
always accidents, I agree with that.
I just
But
don't
to
want to.
have everybody incur the charge up front just doesn't, not.
But it's not, well, see, and that's taking it from, it's a refundable deposit where you're not actually, but you said you can't hold a check. You
Can't,
can't hold
no.
it, you can't hold it in a safe box
No,
until the event's over.
no.
Makes no sense. So it's not, you know, like typically you wouldn't cash the check unless there was an incident and then you, this way. And that's where I think when I originally drafted it, I asked for like a driver's license, something to go back to an entity, whether it's, you know, a tax ID number, whatever, however you want to track them. Just some form of ID that you'd be able to go back to the person. I don't know.
The 27th version of this.
The great thing about this is, I think we should
I
adopt,
agree.
I think
Let's,
we
we can
should
tweak
adopt
it.
what we have and massage it as we go,
Yeah.
if need be. If we get ourselves into a pickle, then we make new rules.
Well, they were up there for it, I guess, but whatever.
Two
That's the
questions.
best thing I've seen so far.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
I appreciate all the comments, don't get me wrong, but we've gone
This is
through,
bad so far.
and, you know, and then, you know, the question came out, how many times have we used the town hall, and what have we collected? We haven't collected anything, we don't have some process. I mean, is that something?
I make a motion.
Wait, before you do, let me just ask two things. So are we going to specify that it's payment in full at one time, or is it going to be?
Just strike a $50 deposit or out, that's 4 words, or 3 words in an amount.
So just payment in full.
Payment for, and the second question is, if you're going to possibly waive fees, do they reserve it and then subject to when, I'm just trying to figure out how the timing's going to work. Somebody comes in and they say, I want to use it, but I want to ask council to waive the fee. Am I reserving it for them, subject to you guys waiving it?
I will reserve it, send us an email.
And they're still gonna give you the refundable fee deposit?
But what if somebody else, a paying customer, comes along meanwhile, then you've lost it because you're holding it?
I think we said that we always give Wesley Chapel residents preference.
No, it doesn't say that
We
anymore.
don't say that anymore?
I don't think so.
Oh, we did say that at one point.
No, because if somebody reserves it and you said it's theirs, and then 3 weeks beforehand, somebody else, and they did it 6 months ago, and then somebody comes in through, and they're not a Wesley Chapel resident, somebody comes in 3 weeks, you're gonna say, hey, you had a lot?
No, I'm not talking about residents, I'm talking about,
No, I'm answering the other question.
you know, one person wants it for free, so they're going to say, hold it for me, and then they're going to come to you maybe a week or a day before their event.
No, there's gotta be enough.
That's why I said.
I'm just trying to figure out how that works.
Email for a consensus, and then we'll approve it at the next meeting.
Well, and I think because they're gonna come and they're gonna request that, so we can address that with them.
Sure.
But meanwhile,
It's gonna be a special circumstance anyway, so we can put the special circumstance rules in place.
But I'm just saying, meanwhile, I've held that date for these people while somebody else wanted to pay us to use it.
Money making.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, okay, that's what,
Money on this.
okay.
Yeah, we're not trying to speak to the residents, we're just trying to help the community at large, whether it's profit or nonprofit. We're not gonna do our retirements based on everything else's bill.
I'm gonna beat you to the punch.
The motion.
Did you make a motion?
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt the town hall usage policy with that one minor change of deleting that $50 deposit for,
And I will second.
Can I,
Go ahead.
I've got 2 people that have already asked to use it in the next 2 weeks. When are you making it effective?
okay, effective
April 1st?
April 1st.
Thank you, okay.
So you want to rescind it?
No, that's fine, with Jean's stipulation.
Okay, we've got a motion, a second, any more discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous.
And hopefully we will not have to massage it too much.
Right.
Well, if we have
Let's
to,
get it in place.
it's just like when you think of an ordinance, you know?
Yeah.
You wrote the ordinances
Nobody.
15, 17 years ago, and now we're rewriting it.
And it's okay if we make up a little form for people to fill out when they do it?
Yes,
Whatever's-
I'll leave that.
All right, update on town hall irrigation proposal, and Blackstone easement. The proposal was, it hasn't changed. What I got back from Blackstone was a request for some language changes.
Did you say that proposal?
No, the original proposal was sent out months ago, I didn't put the date in.
Okay. You sent it out to the local?
It was in another meeting, a long time ago, we all reviewed it. George had a couple of suggestions, just making sure that we are, it was just one, actually, that there should be no improvements that Blackstone makes that interferes with our easement rights, or access to the facilities within the easement, which will be underground, of course. So, I mean, and the conditions they asked for Blackstone, the first one was the only usage of this easement will be for utilities. All right, shouldn't be a big deal. The repair of the Blackstone irrigation system that was damaged during the building of the town hall in the easement area was one section where we cut the pipe, apparently.
Has that already been fixed?
No, never.
Okay.
Then they asked to consider allowing the HOA to meet regularly at the town hall at no cost, up to 10 times per year. Do you want my take on it? Okay, 4, quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah.
Okay, that's my, you know, that is, and the matter of fact, it's in my recommended action.
Now, is that gonna be for a year or forever?
Well, again, given the easement, given what we're getting, I'm okay with going for a while with it. I mean, you want to set a time on 5 years. 3 years, 4 years, I don't care. I mean, I'm okay with indefinitely because we didn't have to do it at all.
Good neighbors. Because we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That's what I
something
said.
we absolutely need to move forward with it. I don't think 4 times a year is egregious.
Yeah.
They've worked really well with us for the most part. I don't see where they
Take it a while.
haven't. I'm fine with 4 times a year.
I'm fine with that too. I'd be surprised if they use it for it.
But I was thinking.
They're coming next week. They do come.
Well, that's okay, because they,
Mhm.
they're
They will use it.
So everything else is okay, right? They approve everything else we have.
There are a couple of minor tweaks to the language in the contract, and George was okay with the first two, and the third one, I just read to you what he said, is that we just need to make sure we state that there are no improvements that they do that prevent us from getting to the underground stuff to fix it if it breaks. You don't want them to put a monument sign on that. They don't need it, they've got their entrance already, but let's say they did over the where the water connection is, we need to get at it, potentially. So other than that, no. George was fine with it, I ran it past George.
I don't think it's necessary, but I'm gonna mention the date is off. It says 2014, so it should read 2015. In the original easement agreement. So it just
Yeah,
has
I've
to
got to
be tweaked.
update that.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
just
you.
those minor updates. Because it wasn't written as a 20 dash, it was actually written out as 2014, so it just has to be updated.
Can I assume that the bid for the landscape, for the irrigation specialist, it wasn't one that was going to expire in 90 days?
Don't assume, I had spoken to him, it was, and then I spoke to him like 6 months in, when all this kept coming up, and he was fine with it. I have not, because this has been taking, I wasn't gonna make contact with them 6 months ago, and then he's waiting another 6 months, so
I think we're.
once we get, and we also are waiting for that main to be, the line to be put in, the 1-inch line
Well,
after
then,
this.
now we have the easement.
Right,
We file
so
the
it's
other
still,
easement.
right, so we're still not right there. We're close, we're not right
Well,
there.
it should, now we have to go to the
County.
county and DOT, that should go fairly.
It should. But once we make
Because we already
contact with
talked.
them, I can, he was not unwilling.
I would say touch base with them, tell them.
Right.
Bring them an update as far as where we're at in the
That's-
process, and see if we have any issues with that.
As soon as the signatures are on this,
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the Blackstone HOA request for the agreement with modification point number 3 as noted in George's email and include 4 meetings per year at no cost.
so,
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, other business. Becky, you are first, I think, on
Yes,
safety.
the safety committee met, and Captain Cody looked at with us. It was a very, very informative and good meeting. And the question was asked to me by you, Mike, that I think we need a deputy after getting what they gave us in reports. Yes, we need a deputy. Brandon is answering at least 40% of the workload here in the village, so he is doing the job. We have statistics to prove that. The county has given very good information to our committee, and Marty and Chauncey worked on this, and we got great information. But it does prove we need one, and we have plenty of deputies already around here. There's over firehouse, and the Joppa Fire Department. We have deputies up there. Another good thing that we found out was the boundary of what he goes by to the territory, that is based on what the property listings. If someone annexes into the village, it goes by the property annexation that is sent in to determine the boundary. So they have that pinpointed down to everything. That is good. They're really working hard. They've made some changes. They're working very hard. Top areas of crime here is theft and burglary, and he also told us door, that the problem is people do not lock their car doors, and they can just go from car, even the shopping centers, go from door to door, open the door, get what they want out the car. So it's very tempting for young kids and all to do that. And another thing they're working on is I think is very interesting. Captain Luke told us about all the things that are available, programs that are available that can assist the village. And the committee was excited about that. And some of them we're talking about it. So they're going to get together in May, meet in May, and discuss this and try to have something, one of the programs going on by June, hopefully, for the village. And it'd be here or over at the fire department. Now, I haven't talked to the fire department, but it'd be one of the others according to the dates we can get. But that was mentioned. Another thing people may not know is if you have medication that you need to get rid of, rather throw it away, they have a drop over there at the department, at the fire department, where you can take your medications. And,
What is, why? I mean, why are they, is it a request or is it just a?
It's letting us know that, it's a hey, to down to the county, there's a box there if you have narcotics or something that you don't want to throw in your garbage can or anything else. Just take it over there and it goes in the box, special box, and they dispense it, which is a great thing because people run with the garbage cans and find things that we, put them in.
It's better than flushing it too.
Right.
The fishies.
But another thing that we talk to officers, we have so many going through here, that this summer he reminded us that the school resource officers, school won't be going on, so those resource officers will be patrolling the village also, so that even gives us more coverage. And we have, our coverage area here is a big covered area. We have lots of deputies that cover this area. We have our own deputy, but because of the ones stationed there, the ones who come through here and everything, we have, when I listen to him, I think we probably have excess coverage. I mean, we really have coverage. But we felt very fortunate that he came and talked to us, and I think everybody agreed that it was a meeting worthwhile with him. And they worked very diligently with the safety committee, and we look forward to having more meetings with him. He said he was open to come in to visit anytime and work with us and help us get things going for the village if we working on programs. So it was a very good meeting with Captain Lee.
Becky, one thing that on the programs, would you see through the safety committee or through the sheriff's department, if they have any kind of a program with a bicycle that we could add to the, we could add to Brandon's car, and then when he's patrolling, he can stop at the park, ride bike through?
They have, okay.
Cheryl might have some input on that apparently.
You have to be bicycle certified, the
Yeah.
deputy, and
Exactly.
Brandon is not.
Right. AJ Monero was certified, so he did that. He carried his bike in his car.
There's some serious training they have to do.
There is.
The officer in Lake Park is going to go through it, and they have 2 different times that they do it. It's like a week, like, they go like 230 miles to qualify.
But I think if people see him riding his bike through the park once a day, twice a day, just on the weekends when it's busy, whatever, I think that would be a good thing for us to check.
But he can't do that unless he goes through that program.
Well, look into it, it's all I ask.
He doesn't have it.
He doesn't. He didn't seem real interested in it.
Doesn't mean he can't get it.
No, he can go to the training. The only thing you always have to remember is when he's doing that, he isn't doing anything else.
I understand.
Right.
I think if I was a deputy and it was my career, I'd say just one more thing for my resume, regardless of who pays for it, it's one more thing you're qualified to do.
Oh, thanks, Becky. I appreciate also knowing that with the fact that he's only here 25% of the week, he's covering 40% of the activity. That says something. So, anything else on that?
That's all.
Any other business?
Yes. Somebody else wants to do it. Something Bill pointed out to me today, I'm sorry, I didn't know anything about this today, that the temporary use permit for the shipping container at the park is expired, and we need to re-up it. Bill would prefer not to just keep re-upping a temporary use permit if we're planning on keeping that until the rec center is built, which may be 2, 3, 4 years out. He would, as an administrative change, make a change to the CUP to allow the shipping container to be stored at the park, so he doesn't have to re-up the condition of the temporary use permit every 6 months.
What's in that shipping container?
Everything.
Lots of
What's
stuff.
everything?
Chainsaws, weed whackers, wheelbarrows, shovels, the boat that was donated to us, the flagpole that was donated to us, hay bales that were disappearing.
Well, I guess my question is it possible to build a shed?
Sure. Well, we have something already that's more secure than a shed. The reason we went with the shipping container is you can break into a shed with a hammer or with even your hands.
Shipping container could determine.
Okay,
But I'm asking, I want to ask. I'm just trying to figure out if there's sheds are not that expensive.
Well, this is a 40-foot long, 10-foot high shed that we have now. It's just not called a shed, it's called a shipping container.
It's huge.
But it's not full end to end.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It's pretty full. Have you been in it?
What? I spotted it when I
it's
was
got a
in
few
the
things,
race.
it's got a couple of water fountains that they got from someplace.
So
that are
there's,
stuck in
people
there.
donate
They're
stuff,
not
so,
small.
I'm not willing to store stuff in my garage necessarily, but we have a lot of equipment that we purchased. I gave a list of Cheryl at the beginning of the fiscal year that we gotta put someplace.
Unless we were to build a secure, permanent shed, what they have is much better than one you go to Lowe's and buy. It's safe for safety, I think, and
I just
I
asked.
think we should
So-
keep that into the.
Okay.
Make a motion.
I don't know if this needs to be a motion necessarily, we just, Bill wanted to get consensus of council whether he could make an administrative change to the CUP to allow the shipping container to stay at the park without a conditional use permit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, do I need to make that form of a motion?
Since
Can you
it's a
make it?
conditional use permit, I would suggest we do that.
I motion that we allow Bill under an administrative change to make a change to the CUP for the park to allow for a 40-foot shipping container. And I would also point out that it's been painted so that it's not that royal blue that we originally purchased, and it's less of an eyesore, but still an eyesore to some degree to the neighbors. It is not meant to stay there forever, but just until we have something better to store all that stuff in.
Do you have a time frame?
The plan is to originally, we got money we're putting 20% of our budget surplus
No, I'm
aside.
saying for your motion, so that he's saying he doesn't want to do this every year. Do you have a time frame?
Well, once you change to the CUP, it'll be there forever.
Right, that's the whole point, so we don't have to do it
And
every
part of the conditional use permit,
What's your motion?
to make it part of the change, to make a change to this, to let Bill Dustin make an administrative change to conditional use permit of the park to allow for the shipping container. Period.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
2 updates, or just a few small updates.
Let me just, one quick thing. So, kind of getting back to your point, I could throw in a discussion, but is if they can apply for a grant, then it can be done maybe sooner rather than later. But we just missed the grant period, which was in January, so we have to wait a year, essentially, for the part of the grant.
The other things that we're working on is we've gotten 3 bids for the electrical upgrades at the park. We don't have them all in writing, but 3 or 4 different electricians have been out. We're collecting bids for the plumbing upgrades at the park. We've only gotten 1 bid so far, and that's in the works. The other thing was we're getting test kits sent over from the Ag Center free of charge that we can use for soil samples for both the town hall and the park to figure out what, if anything, we should be doing with the seeding of the park. The town hall's not in too bad a shape, but the park is in areas, the grass is in terrible shape. The way I see it, we have 3 basic options. We can do nothing and see what comes up. We can pay a professional landscaper to reseed the big bare areas of the park. Or we can reseed using volunteers, rental equipment, and purchasing seed. I'm going to take all those options to Parks and Rec and then come back to council with what, which option they want to go with. But keep in mind, that would be a recommendation from Parks and Rec, not necessarily path forward.
May I ask you something? You're talking about prices for plumbing. What are you talking about when you talk about plumbing?
standpipe that we've already approved.
And what kind of money are you talking about? It's not
And
something.
we've already got it budgeted.
We wouldn't have to go out for bids, is what I'm saying.
That's what we did. We're collecting, I got 4 plumbers coming in, or 3 plumbers
I
coming
think
in.
the bid, I think the budget is $4,000.
Yeah, we want to put a fountain in the pond, which will require an outlet. We want to put electrical up by the parking lot so we can have events, so we don't run out of hot chocolate. We want to put the water up the driveway as far as we can so that we can meet the requirements when we're doing food events to meet the health and safety aspect by having running water. These are all things that we talked about in the past and approved. We just now getting to the process of bidding it out and collecting the bids for Parks and Rec and then bringing it to council. This is all business. I'm just updating you on where we stand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of hot cocoa, when we did the 5K race, I went out and I purchased the carafe, the
Big thing.
big thing.
Big coffee cups.
And I had actually, we spoke about that, and I had asked if there was a need at the town hall for it. I would give it to the town hall, it was used with water. So I just want to know, is there a need for us to have that for events at the park and so forth?
Sure, we have all kinds of events.
It's just been sitting at my house since the event, but I don't really have a need for it.
It would cost us all about $50
Yeah.
to have coffee. Because the fire station did not have one.
So
One or two is what you have.
I have one,
Well, now we have to.
so I'll
Process.
bring it in and
Coffee and tea.
I'll give you the invoice or whatever for it.
We wouldn't have bought a second one if we knew we had a first one.
Well, I think that it was discussed that, well, we'll discuss it. Do we need more than one? You said we have one, but there is park events and there's town hall events, so,
We can keep one in each place.
Or you could use it.
or use two, or, right, because one could be for coffee and one could be for hot water.
So is it okay if I charge it to Park and Rec then?
Sure.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll drop that off.
Anything else?
The other question I have is, before the end of the year, I think it was, we had talked about, actually, I think it was more in the fall, we spoke about doing something with the property beside the town hall. And we were under consensus that, we wanted to make sure that the park, the end of that phase of the park was completed. I think, Elaine, you said, let them get done with the park, we don't want to infringe on that. And then they would have some emphasis towards the property here. So, I'd like us to seriously consider putting an RFP together and figuring out what would it take for that to be developed, if it's only as much as just, it's been graded because we had all that dirt brought in, but even if it's just graded more and, grass, and if Boy Scouts came in and made a trail, something to that effect where it can be a gathering space, it could be as simple as that, but having architect come in
How
and.
about, since we don't know what,
Well, I would like, what I'm saying is I would really like to put, you said the Park and Rec will work on that, so I'd like to say, can they work on it?
Sure. I think what the consensus was, and this is where the survey comes in, is how we want to prioritize the little amount of funds we have, whether it's playground equipment, and if it's playground equipment, where's the playground equipment? Or is it the stage for the amphitheater? Or is it or freestanding bathrooms so we can get rid of the porta pots?
Well, this doesn't need, what I'm saying, that's the point is, that doesn't need anything other than a grading, a final grading, grass, and maybe a trail.
And we have what?
And we have 25, and then we also have other funds that are designated for Park and Rec.
all these,
So, what is it,
all the fee in
94,000?
lieu, we've got like 100 and,
Getting everyone to agree on what our focus should be is where we run into the logjam and why we wanted to do a survey and ask questions where they want to spend their volunteer hours or their monies. So I'm all which we haven't talked about tonight, by the way, to move forward on. I think every time we talk about something, we say, well, we need to talk about survey, whether it's planning board, or council, or parks, or safety, but we haven't really started to move forward on that. I think we need to.
Told everybody to go talk to your committees and start getting ideas back, so.
Oh, there we have a list
Let's
of
put some
questions.
dates around it sometime and push it forward. And if you don't get your ideas back, you missed the survey.
No,
That's the easy way to do it.
So when are we scheduled to put that survey out?
We never established a date. We said, start getting together with the committees that you represent, say, safety, youth, park and rec, planning board.
And we're gonna put all of those questions into one survey?
What we said was, the survey, everybody can have 5 to 10 questions. Is that what we said?
it's like top 10.
I think that's what we said at that meeting.
Well, let's
I mean,
try and
if you
have
want
that.
to change it, we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting. I'm not.
So let's try and have those for April. I'd say we put it
Have
down.
the questions.
Have the questions for April. We can
Yeah,
communicate for,
Okay.
throw out, the liaisons we throw out, so then committee and
Safety
committee
just
can respond back to the liaison.
Safety just met, but maybe they can
Yeah, they could call a special meeting.
have a special meeting. I don't know.
And that really only gives you 2 weeks, because the agenda packets have to go out in 2 weeks.
Oh,
Well,
that's
we can
okay.
make the agenda can just have survey questions, but the questions don't have to be good.
We don't want to lead anybody. We had one before, it was misleading, like, would you like to have this, but would you want to pay for it? The tax,
Why is that misleading?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
But you gotta pay for it, you gotta
Of course.
pay for it. I mean.
I think though that
If
it
you
should
got a wish
be,
list,
let's
you gotta know
just
what you want
figure,
for.
I'd like to, if I have to put in a form of motion, I'd like to make a motion that we have these questions for our April meeting so that we can evaluate them and come up with this survey so it can go out, we can get a response, and we can get moving on this.
Somebody has to inform planning board as well, because I'm simply here for,
That's my job.
well,
Just not really.
okay.
So I'll make a motion to that effect, that the questions come back and we can evaluate them, and I'll even extend the response to a week before our meeting, so that we get all the feedback we possibly can and evaluate them at our April meeting. That's my motion.
Okay, got a motion.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? I think it's gonna be a little-
How many
tight,
questions? Let's tell exactly how many questions.
5 to 10. Per group. We've got park and rec, safety, youth, planning board, the council they want, so
Yes.
that's 50 right there if you go 10. That's extensive.
That's
a lot.
a big survey.
Well, the
I
last
think-
one was 67 questions.
I think if you come with 10, you need to prioritize those, because those might get cut down.
I understand. So when you go to your groups, prioritize it. We've got a motion and second. Further comments?
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Mine.
Thank you, Mike.
I
All
didn't
those,
say
in-
it.
I did.
Mike did.
Mike.
Okay.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Nobody.
We got one more thing, I'll put that in council comments.
Okay, we've got to start putting stuff in, and some of the stuff could have been, and I'm not quite honest. Okay, we spent 20 minutes on other business and council.
Right.
All right, council comments.
I just want to go on record to thank the fire department for letting us use their facilities for our advance. They have a nice place. They were very nice to us, giving us access to that, and I think we should write a nice thank you letter.
Yes, we should. Thank you for bringing that up. That was on my agenda at home to do. But thank you. I agree. I appreciate everybody's participation that was there,
Great turnout.
as well as the day after. Any other council comment?
I have one comment.
Mm-hmm.
We spent the advance, we invited the public to come to the advance, and they gave us their feedback, and when they did, who was it, COG, right? The folks from COG had said, well, write down your top 3, but give me your most important. So every person that gave feedback gave us their most important. And then the next day, we went in and we prioritized this most important, what was most important to everyone. And it didn't sit well with me. I went home and I reevaluated that, and I don't like that process, the way it was put into place, because for each individual who gave their feedback, that was the most important thing for them. And we arbitrarily decided what was more important. And, well, it felt arbitrary because we then turned around and said, well, you know, this is the most important thing, more than this. But for every individual, it was their most important.
Well, that's what
So-
the stickers came into play. I mean, there might have been something that I didn't think of, and there was a couple things I didn't think of, but I ended up putting stickers on to
Right.
make it a
And,
bigger.
I mean, there were basically two glaringly obvious items that came out of
I'm
that.
working on it, because of those stickers.
What are you referring to? Be more specific.
Urban versus rural,
It was the urban versus rural, and it was the de-annexation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're working on that. I don't know what else we can do.
I don't have the list in front of me. It just didn't sit well with me. I'm just telling you, when I evaluated it, every citizen came in and said, this is what's really important to me, this is what affects me, my life. And we then decided what was more important.
I don't think it's we decided what is more important.
No,
It's more that we were trying to, obviously, de-annexation is huge. I mean, this is not a small thing.
Absolutely.
And-
That's not what I'm referencing.
What would you rather us do? We called for a public meeting, we gave everyone a chance to give us their input. Then we had let people turn around and not put all their stickers on one thing to really get an idea of what they wanted, not what we want as a council, but what the residents want and what they want us to focus on. I don't see where we didn't give them.
No, but there were
Every
things that were
opportunity.
equally evaluated that we pushed aside too. And I don't have the list, I don't have the list to concretely give you that. I have the
Okay,
list
but
that's, okay, this is what.
DOT things, we can't do it.
I know that.
And so we definitely said we will speak to DOT about it, but we can't solve it. And that's a major issue when the traffic's really bad. The big thing that we tried to look at is what have we not done? And what we have not done is we have been operating basically under the same rules since 2003. And we have looked at the land use plan, it's been sitting around for a year.
That's right.
And when we take a look at it, and we suddenly realize we have not been responsive. We've been great at following the rules, we have been lousy at actually seeing how we move this entity that we call home forward. And now we're at a crisis point.
I appreciate your comment.
Don't discount my comment. All I'm saying is I think that the way it's done needs to be reevaluated.
I think
That's all.
that's answer the question.
So, the way
We
it
asked
was,
about the process
the
before, and
process.
I asked for suggestions before they.
Well, I couldn't give
said-
suggestions because I only evaluated it
Because
this
it was
time
a short
around.
period of time.
Right.
So I'm asking that we will put it on the agenda sometime.
Yeah, that's all.
And see if we come up with an alternative. I'm happy.
You know, I like to come up with alternative ways, I tried to
We
give
just-
suggestions, I'm just saying, it didn't sit well after I
You
evaluated it,
can't,
that's all.
you can't,
That's my
everything
comment.
cannot be a priority, it's impossible.
And I understand that.
There's 6 of us, 7 of us now.
And there were how many there at the dance that night, so we couldn't discuss every single solitary one.
No.
That's the
We
thing
had a
that's
great
out there.
turnout and a great cross-section of the
Right.
village.
And that's my point, is so from that turnout, everyone spoke of their priority,
Yes. Agreed.
their number one.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would be different if 5 people showed up and they all had the same agenda. We had a good cross-section, we had a good,
Well, I just
number
think
of
we need to
them.
reevaluate,
Can I
that's
have a
all.
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Unless there are
Second.
council comment. Sorry, I didn't want to cut everybody else off.
A motion, Elaine second.
Okay, all